Trump in a tell-all book. The president's allies have since raised questions about Bolton's handling of classified documents, which Bolton describes as retaliation. This year, the Trump administration yanked Bolton's security detail, which was in place because of threats from Iran. The president told reporters he knew nothing about the FBI search and said Bolton could be a, quote, very unpatriotic guy. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
The Israeli military is ordering hospitals to prepare to evacuate patients and equipment from North Gaza in the midst of its planned assault on Gaza City. A Gaza official calls this a death sentence for patients. NPR's Jana Raff has more.
In a recording released by the Israeli military, an Israeli officer tells a Gaza health official they will force everyone to leave Gaza City in the north and that hospitals need to prepare to transfer operations to the South Gaza Strip. The health official tells him that the UN and international medical aid groups have informed them they have no room in the south and that ICU patients and infants in incubators will be at risk. Gaza's health ministry director, Munir El-Bursh, later described the demand as a field execution order against patients too sick or wounded to be transferred. Gaza's healthcare system has collapsed amid ongoing Israeli strikes, with remaining hospitals operating at up to 300% capacity. Jana Raff, NPR News, Amman.
On Wall Street, the Dow is up nearly 900 points, or about 2%. You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Josh Kraft may be trying to distance himself from President Donald Trump, a connection brought on because his father has a history with the president, but he isn't about to swear off the Kraft brand entirely. Last night, Kraft held a Patriots preseason watch party at the Clock Tavern in South Boston, and today he's holding a campaign event featuring his dad, Robert Kraft, and rapper Meek Mill. Politico reports that it'll be a panel discussion moderated by former U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts Rachel Rollins. The event at 6 o'clock at Roxbury Community College is invite only, and it is closed to the general public. Hurricane Erin is slowly moving away from the U.S. eastern seaboard, but it's causing strong swells at beaches around New England, including Cape Cod Bay. Stephanie Gomes-Gano is from Longmeadow. She and her kids saw the big waves during a visit to Narragansett, Rhode Island yesterday.
Well, you know, every time I come to Rhode Island, there's a hurricane off the coast. Truthfully, every year I come with my two kids, and there's always, like, rough weather. We end up at Adventureland. Can't go to the beach every day, but, you know, we're making the most of it.
National Weather Service says to expect waves up to 15 feet around Massachusetts coastline through tomorrow evening. In sports, the Red Sox and Yankees are in the Bronx playing Game 2 of their 4-game series tonight. In the forecast, sunny and 80 degrees today. Beautiful day. Clear sky, low 60s overnight. Mostly sunny, 85 tomorrow, then mostly sunny, low 80s on Sunday. We are at 75 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Since 1946, AU has supported the First Amendment right of freedom of religion. More at au.org. This is NPR.
You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell here with Harvard's Juliette Kayyem. Welcome. Look, is this the first time we've done this together?
This is. I am so excited.
This is very exciting.
Yes, this is very exciting.
This is much.
You look tall.
I am tall. I got taller before, between our coffee break and our prep, because I'm standing on a box.
You look Jim Browdy height.
And
I appreciate it, because now I'm so thrilled to be here with you. You've been doing so fabulous this week and next.
Well, you know, we're busy. We're very busy.
Those hosts, they just vacation all the time.
Lots of time off. All right, well, we're going to get right into it now. We're broadcasting, of course, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on the youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie will be back on Monday. Both Jim and Marjorie are back Tuesday at the BPL with Mayor Michelle Wu from 12 to 1. And Wednesday at noon, her challenger, Josh Kraft, will be here. So this morning, if you've been just tuning in or saw this morning, the FBI raided the home of John Bolton. He, of course, is the former Trump national security advisor turned Trump critic. He's the kind of person who, like, you know, Liz Cheney, I don't think I'd ever thought I would have felt sympathy for, and yet this is the moment we are living in here in American politics.
Anything could happen in 2025.
This is, of course, on top of the news of Trump's continuing, overtaking of the U.S. Capitol with the National Guard troops and ICE threatening to flood, that's their word, Boston with ICE officers in response to Mayor Michelle Wu's defiant speech on Wednesday. The number to call or text is 877-301-8970. Here's our question. Ben, it's perennial. How are you perceiving this moment in American history? Does it make you want to be more outspoken about what you believe in? Or on the flip side, are you more than ever cognizant of how your actions could and would be perceived by the MAGA state police? Does this worry you at all, or are we overhyping it and we should just be quiet and go to the beach? We want to hear what you have to say. It's all on the table. 877-301-8970. So as I said this week, Juliet, around our house, it's what would Juliet Kayyem say? Whenever I get worried about something.
WWJS.
Yes.
What would Juliet say?
So what do you think?
So I'm taken with this idea that you just read about now, this anticipatory obedience, which I guess is an idea that's out there in countries that begin to show more autocratic or totalitarian tendencies, as we are, which is, do people behave differently in anticipation that if they were to behave as they want to behave, that would get them into trouble with police, politics, the mob on social media? And I think that question can only be answered depending on, or is answered differently depending on where you're sitting. So if you talk to friends like mine who are, part of the immigrant community, our immigrants are active in immigrant communities, they will tell you there is already anticipatory obedience. People aren't showing up places where they're worried that they might be accosted by ICE or approached by ICE. They're having a lot less of a public platform, public performance. And so I think for many people who worry about ICE in particular, they're already doing it. They're anticipating some sort of onslaught and reacting. For me, my anticipatory is more, I'm just not mouthing off as much on social media. It has less to do with I'll get into trouble, because I already get into trouble all the time with social media. It's just more like life is short, and do I really need to say something about Kristi Noem's, face? No. I'd like to. I just did, but it's not really what I was put on earth for. So I try to tame myself that way.
All right, we want your calls and text 877-301-8970. Just so you know, we're not exaggerating. Boston acting ICE Director Patricia Hyde, she delivered this warning that ICE will come after Boston. Take a listen.
As far as the city of Boston and Mayor Wu not backing down, the men and women of ICE are not backing down. Unlike Mayor Wu, I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I grew up in Boston, and I know what a safe Boston looks like, and this isn't it. I know what a Boston looked like before sanctuary policies in the last 4 years under the previous administration. This is a public safety crisis. Sanctuary policies don't make anyone safer.
Way to throw a dig there, because you can only stay where you're born. So
no, also it has to do with the fact that Mayor Wu is Asian American.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I am from here. Patricia Hyde. I've seen pictures of her. Says this is what Bostonians look like. That was an ethnic, racist statement, and she knows that many people who support her efforts know how to interpret what she said. I would appreciate if this acting ICE director, Ms. Hyde, would clarify what she means when she says that Mayor Wu is not from here, and does that actually mean that anyone running for office has to be born here? Because I'm sure her political affiliation suggests people from New Hampshire and Maine who come here to run for office. So, but that was, to me, that's exactly the racial, not even undertones that people at ICE are using now, and it is a threat to Wu. That's here. was actually elected. I believe Miss Hyde is acting.
Acting. She is acting. And I would say, as someone who was born and raised here and lived in the city of Boston for 20 years and greater Boston, it is much safer now than it was in the 70s when I was not allowed, right?
Yeah.
1960s, 1970s, 1980s, Boston was not safe. It's much safer now than it ever was. So we can meet Patricia Hyde and help her fact check. Let's go to
well, we welcome her here. I mean, if she wants to make those claims here, I just would love to, have an engagement rather than those kinds of, there's a way that Boston needs to look in the future, at least what she's suggesting. It was a way it looked in the past. And everyone, first of all, it didn't look that way in the past. And secondly, this is a city that has had, has had its troubles, as we know, with racial integration, and for her to bring this up in the way that she does, attacking Mayor Wu, is just it's such weakness by these people.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines and hear from you. Hey, Eric is calling from Eastie. Eric, welcome to BPR. What's on your mind?
Good morning,
Good
guys.
morning.
How are you?
Great. Thanks for calling.
So I'm a Trump supporter. I voted for this, and I cannot wait for it to start happening.
What did you vote for? What's the this?
Mass deportation.
Okay. So who do you want deported? Who do you want deported? What
People
type?
who are illegally here.
Who are illegally here. And does that mean migrants seeking asylum?
If we can, yes.
Okay, but they're here legally, so you want to amend so you want people who are here seeking asylum legally, you want them on a list to be examined for deportation?
Anyone we can get rid of, I want to get rid of them.
Why? Why?
Because I am a rule follower, and most of these people are breaking the law.
So the people who come here for seeking asylum and are allowed to be in by the government and are tracked by the government, vetted by the government, they're breaking the law?
Well, technically not right now.
Right.
We can adjust that.
Right. So if they break the law, they usually do get deported or get jailed. I mean, that's usually the case. Do you think going through a stop sign is warranted to get you deported if you're here legally? If you're here seeking asylum as a migrant and you go through a stop sign or get caught jaywalking?
Not if you're here legally, but if you're here illegally, anything that you're stopped for should remove you.
Okay, so how many people do you think are here in the United States illegally?
I don't know, 15 million or more.
So I have a question. Just this is important to assess sort of what, because I think the legal, illegal, you're sort of using in a way to suggest it's sort of something that can be defined only at a particular moment. So when you talk about illegal, you are talking about a group of people who came across the border sort of, without being catched, who have no status here. That seems like the pool that you're looking at, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So then what about Haitians and others who have been living here under something called temporary protective status for decades? That's a status that the country under Republican and Democratic presidents have given to people who are here, who, if they go back to the country where they're from, would be viewed as sort of inhumane. The Trump administration has waived that status for people who the day before were legal. So are you saying that just by mere fiat, if Trump says, okay, yesterday you were legal, but today I'm making you illegal, regardless of job, lack of criminal history, you married, you had kids here, you've been here for decades, those people you think should be a priority for deportation?
100%.
So what's your priority then? I mean, let's assume that one cannot deport 20 million people or 15 million people at the same time. Is it just anyone that ICE runs into?
Exactly. As many as you can.
Okay.
So, Eric, your basis on this is rule following, right? Like if you came in illegally, if you came in undocumented, if you're here and don't follow our rules, you should be deported, right?
No, basically, if you came here illegally and you have no status, if you get caught anyway, you should be removed. If you came here legally but you've been denied, you've had your hearing, and you've been denied, you should be removed. if you're here for temporary status and we revoke temporary status, you should be removed. Anyone who is not here legally should be removed, period.
But it's based on the rule following, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you feel about someone who was convicted of fraud and sexual abuse being able to run for president? Is that okay?
Is he here legally?
He is here legally, but he is a convicted
Yes.
felon. You're okay with,
fine.
but you're okay with his
100%.
rule breaking because he's an American
Yes.
citizen.
Is there any? I guess one of the things
Okay.
that's important to note is is there any story or image that in your mind, in terms of these deportations, you're reading the same things that we are, would create a exception to your deport them if illegal, and illegal is defined by you, not by the courts, or by Trump. It's not being defined by the courts. These people clearly would have a right to due process if they claim that they were legal.
Right?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Well, because it's trying to get to whether there's any line that you would draw. Or is it just whatever Trump wants? Because if it's whatever Trump wants, I think I get it, right? Like I live in this country too. But is there any line that you would draw that would distinguish yourself from a president who's losing in courts on these cases? A lot of the temporary protective status stuff is losing, or is it just whatever Trump claims is illegal, they be deported? If that's your
fine,
case. Yeah. That's okay. I just want to know, is there a line where you're looking, you're like, oh my God, that's a mother of 3 kids. She's been here 20 years. She's been working, paying Social Security. And yesterday she was legal, and today Trump said she was illegal. She's out of here. Does that in any way?
I have no problem with her being removed at all.
Okay, so then that's whatever
Trump says.
Right. Okay, so we get that.
All right, thanks,
we get
Eric.
That.
Thanks for calling. Good luck. Good luck
with those line drawings.
Good luck at the hospital finding someone to move your grandmother from one room to another with that when all the Haitians have to be sent back. But that's okay. All right, we're going to let's look at a quick text here. Actually, we'll go to the phone. I missed the one I was looking for. Greg from Wichita. Hey, Greg.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Boston Public Radio.
How you doing? Thank you very much.
What's on your mind?
Well, I think the previous caller is a perfect example of why is just exactly the time not to be quiet. That now is the time to speak out against the Trump administration and their policies, because there are folks out there that just seem to bow to whatever Trump wants to do, that he is the king. And I think that whether it's on Facebook or at protests or just speaking to your friends or getting involved in your local government somehow, that working and speaking out against this authoritarian government, and we're not creeping toward authoritarianism. We're pretty much there. So we need to speak out and let people know that we're not going to acquiesce to this.
Greg, the thing I've always found, sort of what we were, and I appreciate the prior caller sticking with us, is I want folks to define what they are believing based on the actual legal terms. Like, people throw around illegal aliens all the time, and the classification that they're using is not correct. But on the other hand, I think that we often have to say, and we have to say it more regularly, nobody wants criminals here.
Yeah.
Nobody wants people who have been here, either got here legally or are here undocumented and are committing crimes. Nobody wants that. And if we would focus on that, if we would focus on removing people who have committed violent crimes, and if you wanted the border secured, which it is, which I don't know why Trump isn't taking a victory lap on having secured that would have been enough for a lot of people. Secured the border. More people are not coming in, the lowest number ever. So take a victory lap on that and focus on, the people who really need to be arrested and deported. I've had a number of law enforcement people, whenever there's been an ICE sweep, and they pick up 10 very dangerous criminals in East Boston. And my friends in law enforcement go, there aren't 10 really dangerous criminals like that.
Because they were already in jail.
Yeah, they're already in jail. Right.
So, I mean, it is this idea of sort of the pretend world in which resources are infinite, and therefore we'll just deport 12 million people. I mean, it's obviously a lack of sophistication about how government does things. It has to set its priorities. And you can't find a single person who would argue we have a duty to keep criminal, undocumented immigrants here in the United States. It's a straw man that's set up by the Trump administration. The next question is, what are your priorities for deportation, right? Is it actually the dreamers, right? Kids who are babies, who were brought here, who have lived here, who have no ties to any other country. Is that your priority? And look, there's a group of people, a large group of people in the United States that are very comfortable giving the president the ability to draw any line he wants, and then they'll just follow it. I think there's a much more dynamic group of people who understand what is going on and may have been sympathetic to Trump, but now, and we read the stories, now aren't. And I have to say on this stuff, on sort of speaking out, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know, I always... do you laugh at Trump because it's like so absurd, but then you realize it's not absurd, like he's actually doing this, and I think why everyone has to stop laughing. He's actually doing this.
All right, let's go to another call. Peter from Milford, New Hampshire is calling us. Peter, what's on your mind? Welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just see all the headlines about spending millions of dollars building new detention centers, spending probably tens of millions of dollars trying to recruit new ICE agents. And I'm just thinking that with the information we have about most of these people who have come in on some kind of asylum request or something, that it might be better to spend some of that time and effort to craft a policy saying that if you've been in this country X number of years and paid taxes and not had any serious violent or serious offenses, that there's a path to citizenship. These are people that do important jobs for us that we would miss. We could take that money and build some of these factories that our president is telling us that we're going to have when we bring manufacturing back. And it just seems like a big waste of money. And it's going to kill our economy.
Peter, the other thing I like to say is be mad at the right people. Like, you can be angry about something, and then you're angry at the wrong entity or institution. We should all be outraged about immigration and our immigration policy, and we should all be outraged at Congress about the lack of work on this. We should be outraged at Trump for blocking Joe Biden's efforts to close the border at that time. This has been at least a 40-year problem, which both the Democrats and the Republicans have not addressed. So if you're unhappy about immigrants, migrants, people here being illegally, people here being undocumented, be mad at Congress. Not much they can do now.
Can I just disagree with you a little bit, or just sort of a path forward? The Democrats have not been good on this issue, though. Like, in other words, it is clear that we didn't need comprehensive immigration reform to tightening up the borders in the way that the American public deserves. I am a little bit more sort of more center on this issue than my party, but look, it seems to me that at least some of the polling that we're seeing right now is Americans generally agree, Democrats and Republicans, we get the outliers like our first caller, but generally agree on two things. One is they want a more secure border, and we don't need to wait for laws for comprehensive immigration reform. We can do it. And secondly, we really don't like this sort of absurd interior enforcement that's going after, the mothers of two kids who's been here 20 years under temporary protective status. It seems to me we can align. And one of my worries, though, is that the reaction to Trump's draconian efforts is that the Democrats don't come up with a strategy that aligns with where I think a majority of Americans are, which is we're a country which should have secure borders, and we are a country that really doesn't like this absurd enforcement effort, scary enforcement effort. I'm sorry, I called it absurd, scary for many, that's going on domestically. So we're checking in with you on this moment of crisis, how you're responding, if you're responding, and what's keeping you optimistic. The calls will continue after a short break. I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you're a serious connoisseur of bottled water, you probably know which brands pair well with certain foods like steak.
It's got a high sodium content, big bubbles. It really just brings that saltiness out of your meal.
Enter the world of water sommeliers. This is not a joke. We'll have that story and the latest news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Museum of Science, presenting the new exhibit, Perception Playground, which explores how your brain shapes your understanding of reality. Tickets at mos.org. And M. Steinert & Sons Pianos, the region's authorized Steinway dealer, presents the return of the Symphony Hall Piano Event, Friday, September 5th through Sunday the 7th at Symphony Hall, msteinert.com.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. And we are live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie's back on Monday, and they are both back on Tuesday at the BPL. Mayor Wu will be here Tuesday 12 to 1, and Josh Kraft on Wednesday at noon. So if you're just tuning in, we're getting your reactions to the FBI raid of the home of the former National Security Advisor John Bolton, this an apparent act of vengeance from Trump, and of course the National Guard takeover of Washington, D.C., and the threats to blue cities like Boston. How are you reacting to all of it? Call or text us 877-301-8970. That's 877-301-8970. A great text here following Patricia Hyde's logic from one of our texters. Scott Brown can't run for Senate in New Hampshire. But she won't say that because he's white, and that's the real story. And I would like any of Trump's supporters to tell us exactly what benefit they and our country receive from all of this deportation. Right, so, if we don't allow elected officials to run from other cities, and towns, no one's ever going to get elected.
That's exactly right. Unless, Scott Brown, I don't think he's coming back to Massachusetts. I think he's gonna stay up there. So we have caller Ehab from Quincy.
Yes, hi, good morning, guys.
Hi, good morning.
Boston Public Radio, I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I always listen to you. First time caller, always listening.
Good. Well, welcome.
Okay, your first caller. So I'm responsive to your first caller. You want to deport 15 million illegal immigrants. So first of all, what he did illegal? What is illegal and legal? Is Trump felony in New York State 30+ felony? Is that legal or illegal? So it looks like Republican Trump supporters, they pick and choose in the law which one is legal, which one is illegal. If Trump is not paying tax, is that legal or illegal? If he bankrupt several times and get away with the tax and use the system advantage, is that legal or illegal? So that's number one. Number two, these people, they come here, they apply for asylum or a refugee, and they work essential workers in our nursing home, as you said, at the hotels, and they clean our restaurants, and they do job himself. He cannot do, and he will never do it. So why you are blocking something like a temporary protected status? And by the law, that's illegal. Why you just shut up, pick and choose?
Yeah, the idea that I agree with you. I mean, the temporary protective status, that one day you can be legal, but the president just decides the next day you're illegal, whether millions of people then have to pack up, seems to me. Right, exactly. Can I ask you something?
Yes, please.
So where are your people from?
Oh, okay. I came here legally, thank God, with a diversity lottery visa in 2003, 23 years in this great country. I'm a citizen. All my daughters, they born and raised here. And I love this country. And I'm an organizer. I advocate. I'm a
Wonderful
organizer. Yes, I organize people to vote and to go to the polls and vote. And people, they talk about Michelle Wu. She is not from here, from Chicago. Give me a break. She comes to the School of Law. The School of Law. She went to Harvard University. She works in this city. We love our mayor.
Yes.
If you grow up here, you're born here, you don't want our elected mayor, just go back where your grandparents come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. We
love our mayor, yes.
We appreciate
Thank you
call.
so
Thanks too much.
Keep out there.
This is what I always love about this discussion, too, which Ehab really brought up to us, is that, until just about Richard Nixon, people would come over the border and go back and forth regularly, and it wasn't until they decided, this is a bad idea without a better solution. So when people say their grandparents, their great-grandparents came here legally, probably not, because the system didn't really exist the way that it did. Let's go to Carol in Cape Cod. Carol, welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Thank you. This is my first time ever calling into the radio station.
Welcome. Good job.
We're going to have so many first-time callers.
And I've worked with refugees and immigrants my whole life. I've worked in resettlement and also with the Haitian community. And I think one of the big problems is that people have very strong opinions about immigration, but they aren't really informed about how the system works, and it can be quite complex. So I think it's the responsibility of people who know about immigration and how it works, like you're doing, to really educate and across the whole spectrum of the media so that you can reach people who are really misinformed about this in a way that understands where they're coming from, and not to focus on Trump, but rather how much support he got around this issue and to reach the supporters. And I've tried to do that in my daily life. I also think that we need to educate people about the relationship between immigration and the economy. Mm-hmm. What I say to my friends or other people I meet is that if you want a strong economy, you have to have immigrants, because you don't have the labor force otherwise to keep that economy strong wherever you are in the world. If you don't want immigrants, you're going to have to accept that you are not going to have a strong economy.
Are you feeling that in the Cape this summer? Because we read about it.
Which?
In terms of the economy, in terms of staffing, in terms of people having a workforce to help the Cape succeed this summer.
Yes, absolutely. In any seasonal area, I'm from Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Okay.
And in any seasonal area, there have always been, and it used to be mostly Irish, who would come in the summers to fulfill that workforce. Now there are other groups, and that could also be part of it in terms of racism. But yes, seasonal areas always need the staffing. And they come from J1s, international students, as well as immigrants and refugees. Also, Cape Cod would not be as beautiful as it is now without our landscapers and people who work in construction that many of us, cannot necessarily afford. I mean, I think the wage issue is an issue, but, you really need the labor force. And I think different areas like the meatpacking industry are starting to realize this even more. And I think when that happens and it touches people, but people who know about this have to be responsible.
That's great, Carol.
That's a terrific point, which is right, that these words illegal, undocumented are sort of thrown out when there's too many different statuses, and it's important for us to delineate what we are actually talking about. That's all the time we have. Thanks as always for your calls and texts. Coming up after this quick break, it's time for our Friday media analysis segment, Press Play. We'll talk to reporters Adam Reilly and Phillip Martin. I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, are comedies making a comeback? No longer sidelined to streaming, movies like the Naked Gun reboot and Freakier Friday are no laughing matter. They're serious box office hits. Plus, the shape-shifting nonsense word skibbity, which can mean cool or bad, is among the thousands of new words added to the Cambridge Dictionary. We'll take on that and more on the Culture Show's Week in Review today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering short courses on critical topics led by world-class faculty. Professionals can get up to speed on AI, innovation, cybersecurity, and operational strategy. More at executive.mit.edu. And the MBTA Commuter Rail, helping riders skip the stress of city traffic and parking. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy with Julia Kayam in for Marjorie Egan. We're live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
We're also steaming.
We're steamy and streaming. Marjorie's back on Monday. Both Jim and Marjorie back on Tuesday at the BPL. Mayor Wu on Tuesday, noon to 1, and Josh Kraft Wednesday at noon. Now it's time for our Friday media analysis segment called Press Play. With us at the interview desk, GBH News senior investigative reporter Phillip Martin. Hello, Phillip.
It's good to see you both.
And also with us, GBH politics reporter Adam Reilly. Hello, Ryan. Adam Reilly.
Ryan.
I've only known him for 500 years.
Yeah,
you
but
only
let's just call
forget
him the wrong
names
name.
you know.
I'll answer to
That's
Susan.
the rule. Yes.
You could call me Julie.
Julie.
We're so glad you're here. Hi. I want to talk about something serious at first. So right before we came on air, not that we need official word, but officially by monitors of famine, that Gaza is now essentially a food-free zone. Let's put it that way. That is essentially now in a complete famine. And it's a designation that is based on all sorts of metrics, but we know what is happening in Gaza now. And we know it because of brave journalists. And in the last week or 10 days, at least 6 journalists have been killed by Israel, 6 journalists covering Gaza. And just wanted to get your thoughts about what this means about the story, a story that has taken too long to get out into the world.
Well,
you want to lead the way?
Well, yeah, I'll lead the way by saying that I want to first of all give credit to these journalists who have risked their lives to cover a extraordinarily brutal and horrible crisis in Gaza. We've lost hundreds, and when I say we, I mean fellow journalists. Yeah. And journalists should be speaking out. We've lost hundreds of journalists in Gaza covering this situation. Some have been purposely targeted, that according to the New York Times and other sources. And I think that's the first thing we need to get out of the way. They have risked their lives. Some have, one journalist in fact died in a situation where he, his children, his entire family was killed while he was covering this crisis. And I think we have to conclude that they have been purposely targeted. And that is absolutely critical to make that point. A lot of journalists, of course, are worried about this story. It takes on its own dimensions when it's covered. But I think that credit has to be given to those who are in the trenches. Yeah. As far as your point, this is part of the ongoing tragedy that is occurring in Gaza. And we need to give credit to those who are trying to cover this.
Well, it would seem that Netanyahu, who does not deny these killings, I mean, one of his statements, or one of the Israel statements, is that all of these journalists are supporters of Hamas or somehow aid and abet Hamas, which we know is not true, especially the Al Jazeera reporters. Most recently, this Anas al-Sharif, who has documented relentlessly what is going on in Gaza. And I mean, how do you get this story out? And how can you, from sitting here, support those efforts to get this story out when Israel and, to be honest, many media organizations in the West are uninterested in it.
I don't know if media organizations in the West are uninterested, but Israel has, my understanding is, restricted access to coverage. It's not like you're allowed, if you're a Western journalist, to just go in and set up shop wherever you want, go talk to whoever you want, range freely and get the story as best you can. You tend to have to be embedded with the Israeli military. There's calls, I think, for increased media access now with the reports of famine, and I believe Netanyahu's indicated he might allow some embedding to occur yet again, but that's just such a deeply flawed way to be asked to cover a story.
Well, especially when you're promulgating disinformation.
Yeah, and including to Israel. I mean, the lack of information that Israelis are receiving. I'm not, maybe they know what's going on, but their own access to this information, what's going on just down the street in Gaza has been controlled by Netanyahu as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you were talking about what ordinary people can do to facilitate greater access, in Israel, it's a political question, right? So that's something that, if people are, for example, marching, or polls are indicating that they're going to vote a certain way because they feel like the conduct of the war is unacceptable, you have a lot more leverage if you're an Israeli citizen than if you're a citizen of the U.S. who thinks
well, that's true. But even as an Israeli citizen, you've seen pushback against publications, particularly Haaretz. You've seen major pushbacks against their coverage because, again, this disinformation flows, and Israel is in a state of war, and it has been able to impose penalties against individuals whom it considers are contravening the official line. Let's just. And
Haaretz is the more liberal-leaning.
It's a more liberal-leaning newspaper, which has been probing the criminal charges against Netanyahu, and has been probing the war a lot deeper than other sources within Israel. Unlike the more pro-government organization, I should say news organization, Jerusalem Post.
I do think that frustration in the U.S. Congress is mounting even among people who are staunch supporters of Israel. I talked to Representative Jake Auchincloss recently, and he's about as staunch when it comes to backing Israel as you get in the Massachusetts delegation. And when I brought up Netanyahu's claim that no one is starving in Gaza, he just scoffed at it and said, I trust Cindy McCain, the head of the UN's World Food Program, more than I trust Benjamin Netanyahu. He had no patience whatsoever for this misinformation being promulgated by the PM.
And do you get a sense from your peers and in the newsroom that we're in that there's more liberty now, 2 years later, to have those conversations about, you could call it genocide or slaughter, whatever word is, but it seems like there's more liberty now here in the United States for these stories to be reported than there was, say, in the immediate months after October 7th.
I think that's true. And again, just to say, one more member of the congressional delegation we saw, Catherine Clark, use the term genocide and then walk it back very quickly, but it was still newsworthy that she used it. And I do think that's reflective of shifting public sentiment on the part of Americans generally.
All right, we're talking with Phillip Martin and Adam Reilly on our press play. So, full disclosure, Comcast, and we are saying goodbye in one way to MSNBC, which is now called MS Now. For 30 years, the progressive opinion station has been part of NBC, and it is now going to continue to be part of Comcast, but live on its own. I will say I've heard from people who, they've been on a hiring spree. I think they're the only media news entity in the world who we can say on hiring spree right now. And a number of folks that I've talked to who are there have said that they're excited about this because now they don't have to compete against NBC directly in a meeting. They've been getting sloppy thirds, sloppy fourths, and now they can compete directly against NBC, CBS, CNN, and they think this is a good thing. What are your takes? I also want to see if you can, you probably read ahead, but what MSNBC originally stood for back in the dark ages of 30 years ago. But what are your takes on this?
Well, when I first heard it, and I'm looking, I, of course, managed to not have the printout that gives what MS Now. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm here for you,
You live
Adam.
to serve. Fabulous.
Yes.
My initial thought was that the acronym, for an acronym to work,
You have to be able to remember
the
it.
basis of the acronym needs to make sense.
Yeah.
And the basis of the acronym for MS Now is, thank you again for the reading materials.
You're welcome.
My source, news, opinion, world, which just sounds like this sort of word salad. Could have been something created by
I think
AI.
it is. Yeah.
Or, but then,
Don't insult AI, Adam.
I had, it'll come for me. We'll talk about that later, and I'll have very respectful things to say about AI if we do get to it. But I hadn't known, for example, that CNBC, which is going to keep its initials, originally stood for or stands for Consumer News
I never
and
knew
Business
that
Channel.
before. Did you? I thought C just stood for C. Or cable. I don't know. I was like, oh, it actually has a tie to.
What does CVS mean? What does the drugstore
Oh, don't
CVS
tell me.
stand for?
Customer valued service.
There you
Don't
go.
even
Good
tell
job.
me.
Right, never
Okay,
mind.
no, I know, but
I had the exact same reaction, Juliet.
C had a meaning.
I initially thought, no, the acronym that doesn't work because the foundation of the acronym is unsound, and then I completely contradicted myself by having no clue what CNBC stood
Right,
for.
so there you go. But anyway, what about the idea of this shift of point of view? And I mean, I'm not kidding when I say there's nobody hiring, but they're hiring. So is that optimistic, Philip?
Well, I think they're assuming that as this authoritarian atmosphere, authoritarian measures, authoritarianism increases in the country, and I think one of your callers earlier said not creeping authoritarianism, but we're in that moment, and I do believe that. I think that's true in terms of media. I think that's true in terms of where we are governmentally, and I think it's true in terms of what we have to deal with. And I think as a result, MSNBC, formerly MSNBC, they understand that this is where people are coming to. Yeah. They're coming there. They're coming to CNN to some degree. They're looking at the Atlantic.
Yeah.
They're looking at sites that have not been compromised in their view. And I think they expect a larger audience. Their audience has not been particularly robust. It's grown certainly since
Trump.
Well, it's grown since Trump, but don't forget the MSNBC. Their numbers were down dramatically after the election, and began to rebound only in February and March with this series of executive actions taken by President Trump. And I think you're right. I think you will see more people responding to the moment by tuning into that which they trust. And that is among the few news organizations at this point, in addition to some of the other ones, public media, of course, that a lot of people who are pushing back against authoritarianism feel they can come to and get legitimate, reasonable, objective news.
But Sue, tell me if I'm right, since you're the NBC insider. If everything that you've just described, Philip, comes to pass, it's sort of a happy accident, right? Because this is an internal reorganization where you have the NBC.
It's a business-driven, it's an asset-driven business decision. It's not a ratings decision or a
Paramount, CBS.
It's beyond my pay grade. But
so you have the NBC brand and the Peacock being set apart from these ancillary properties, including CNBC.
Correct.
And MSNBC.
Right. And the idea is, of course, from a business standpoint, you could sell them separately if you wanted. Or you could spin something off of them that doesn't come from your major resources. It's all sort of a bookkeeping and future sales move.
That makes sense.
This isn't what I was told.
Even I can wrap my brain around that.
Yeah, you can wrap your mind. But I have to say the level of enthusiasm from the folks at MSNBC right now is higher than it's ever been.
Well,
and it doesn't seem fake.
Lucky them.
And that's because they're sort of breaking free of this conglomerate NBC thing, and that they're going to be able to now. They'll be able to now.
Because you have this vision, like, you're in an NBC News meeting and everyone goes, well, I'd like this. And they go, yes. I mean, we all know you're fighting for resources, right? And it's always the same. So now they have their own flag, their own ship, and they can decide if they want to spend all their money on one thing or not. So they're not just waiting for sloppy thirds.
As you mentioned, there are many outlets where growth is the order of the day right now. So
I always, I know, like, if you look at some legacy media or newspapers, everyone's like, but there's so much content. It's just finding its place in different areas. I sort of worry about it less than I might have even 5 years ago. And I get it. There's like news droughts and news deserts and all sorts of places that aren't getting local news. But the access to information, if done well, you actually can be smarter about what's going on in your community.
Well, this is a good bridge, Juliet, to the pink slime journalism conversation that we can
I did
have
not
here,
know about.
That Phillip Martin wrote
I'm
about
a victim
for
of it, I
GBH.
think.
So I both love pink slime and hate pink slime. Pink slime is, of course, a reference to the hamburger ingredient, which actually is not really that bad. It just happened to be pink and look like
it's
slime.
bad.
It's bad.
Well, it's part of the cow.
Yeah,
you got to use the whole cow.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was what chicken McNuggets looked like before they were reconstituted.
That too, reconstituted. All right, so you just find
we put chicken in quotes for the chicken McNuggets. Chicken.
Pink slime in the journalism world. Define for us, Philip.
The idea is you're looking at something, when you think about the worst thing that you could eat, in terms of meat, right? And the term pink slime conveys everything that you absolutely hate. And that's what the term means in journalism. It basically imitates news in the way pink slime imitates a good slice of beef or steak or something to that effect. It supplements. But pink slime is used basically as a way of propagating. It's news sites that mimic legitimate news sites. I like what Dan Kennedy said, who wrote a book, who authored a book, What Works in Community News, a professor at Northeastern University, where he said, he talked about his favorite pink slime news site in this area called the North Boston News. And I'll ask the question that he asked me and to the audience. Has anyone ever heard of North Boston? And the point is, there's no such thing as North Boston. But if you have something called the North Boston News, you're mimicking legitimate news. Now, this might, on its surface, seem innocuous, that you have sites that are fed by artificial intelligence, that are supplemented by writers. There's a person called T.E. Lawrence, who exactly, who
not T.H.
That's right, not T.H. Lawrence, right? But so we understand that the Lawrence of Arabia does not work for North Boston News, but they put it out there, and it fools a lot of people. Now, in itself, like I said, it might seem innocuous, but it can also be weaponized. It can be politicized, and it has been. And I think that is what concerns a lot of people about pink slime at the moment. That the most prolific pink slime sites are run by a group called Metric Media. And Metric Media is funded by through a series of shell companies that include Peter Thiel, Richard Uheim, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the shipping magnate, and Tim Dunn, all billionaire supporters of far-right programming and concepts and policies in this country.
So what's a story that would be on one of these sites that you're worried about? I mean, so what's the difference between me using Claude to write an AI code from me to look for news about the South End that I may miss, and I get the feed of the South End news from other establishments, and I put it on the southendnews.com. What's so bad about that? Is that what the problem is?
Well, the problem is this: that the Toll Center at Columbia University and a group called NewsGuard, they've taken very careful examinations of pink slime. And what they found is you will have a story in the North Boston News, for example, or the Bay State Ledger, there's no such thing, and it will talk about local sports. And that's an aggregation of stories that have come from AI. And so these are legitimate sports stories, but they might appear in the most recent edition of the North Boston News. But they're stories from March. Now, like I said, that's just a.
What's wrong with that? What's
precisely.
wrong with me?
Well, Adam, go ahead.
I was going to usurp your collective roles and ask Philip. When I read the story, it was really interesting, but I found myself thinking the cues that what you're consuming are pink slime are so over the top, from the absurd names to the absurd bylines to dated stories like the ones you're describing, that I would think that almost anyone with a basic level of media literacy would say, okay, this isn't legit.
Precisely.
Am I wrong?
No, you are absolutely right. They have relatively little readership. But the reason they are valuable to those who fund this through a series of shell companies like Metric Media, for example, is that when the time is right, as it was in 2024, all of a sudden you see the stories that appear in pink slime publications, and there are over, by one estimate, 1,200 of them in the United States. By another estimate, according to Columbia University, 1,600, more than the number of legitimate news sites, daily news sites in the country. And in 2024, all of a sudden, these papers start talking about Trump having won the 2020 election.
So the fear isn't that they exist. The fear isn't that they're publishing sports news from March. The fear is that they are a ghost, maybe not pink slime, but ghost news outlets that can be suddenly employed to spread a message whenever Peter Thiel gets tired of Prospera in Roatan.
Right. Not suddenly. They have been used to do this. In 2022, in advance of the election, $14 million was donated into a pink slime site, Metric Media, by these three men I mentioned. And you have to forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, the shipping magnate, Richard Olheim, Tim Dunn, and
Peter Thiel.
We're going
to have to leave that there,
we'll
Philip.
leave it there.
We do, but this is
dig into it.
And Philip wrote a story for GBH. Local editors worry pink slime journalism poses real danger. We've been speaking with GBH politics reporter Adam Reilly and GBH senior investigative reporter Phillip Martin. Thank you both.
Thank you.
We say goodbye to you listening to us on any PM, but please make sure to tune in to the Fabulous 413 starting at 3 this afternoon. The show continues here in Boston after the noon news. It's Live Music Friday. GBH's Callie Crossley and naturalist Cy Montgomery. I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy, or vice versa. We don't know anymore. And you're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM live from BPL Land, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. A brilliant young Muslim scholar whose life is upended by a tragic loss of her father sets out to answer one of life's most profound questions. What is love? Watch Islam's Greatest Stories of Love tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. Ahead on hour number 2 of BPR, live from the BPL. We'll kick off noon with Live Music Friday at Jill McCracken, ahead of the We Make Noise Fest, platforming women and queer artists in the heart of downtown Crossing. We'll also talk with organizer and artist Naomi Westwater.
And I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. Then, ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons says he'll flood Boston with ICE agents after Mayor Wu defends the city's Trust Act, which limits the city's cooperation with federal immigration officials. We'll talk about that and a hero with a sandwich in D.C. with GBH's Callie Crossley. All that plus our Two More Things segment next on BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The FBI searched the home of President Trump's former national security advisor turned sharp critic, John Bolton. When asked today about a search of Bolton's home outside Washington, D.C., the FBI said only that it had conducted, quote, court-authorized activity in the area, and added there is no threat to public safety. Once a trusted insider of the first Trump administration, Bolton became a vocal critic of Trump's foreign policy and his presidency. Today, President Trump referenced his attorney general when he told reporters that he didn't know about today's search in advance.
I tell Pam and I tell the group, I don't want to know, but just you have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it. It's not necessary. I could know about it. I could be the one starting it. I'm actually the chief law enforcement officer, but I feel that it's better this way.
Upon returning to office, Trump revoked Bolton's security clearance and the security detail that was in place because of threats from Iran. A UN-backed panel of experts on starvation has declared that northern Gaza is now suffering from a full-blown famine. The panel says 500,000 people there are facing, quote, catastrophic conditions. NPR's Jackie Northam reports from Tel Aviv. This comes after almost 2 years of war and Israeli restrictions on relief aid entering the devastated territory.
The report by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, or IPC, says 500,000 people in Gaza are facing the most severe level of hunger crisis, characterized by starvation, destitution, and death. It also warns that another 1 million people, about half the population of Gaza, are facing severe food deprivation, and that more than 130,000 children under the age of 5 are at risk of death from acute malnutrition in the coming year. The IPC does not assign blame. Israel has denied there's a hunger crisis in Gaza and has restricted food and medicine going into Gaza, saying Hamas steals them and uses them for its own purposes. Jackie Northam, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is surging further into record territory, up now more than 950 points. This after Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaled a possible interest rate cut.
And the stability of the unemployment rate and other labor market measures allows us to proceed carefully as we consider changes to our policy stance.
Powell speaking at the Fed's annual conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming today. In the most recent Fed meeting, policymakers opted to keep rates unchanged, citing current economic data and tariffs. President Trump has publicly disparaged Powell for not supporting a rate reduction. Powell's term expires next May. The Dow is up 954 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. In a visit yesterday to Barnstable Wildlife Sanctuary, Governor Maura Healey announced biodiversity goals for the next 25 years. The plan aims to restore habitat and double the pace of land protection. It would put 40% of land in conservation by the year 2050. Healey spoke at the Long Pasture Wildlife Sanctuary owned by Mass Audubon.
When we talk about revitalization, we're talking about removing old dams, fixing culverts, restoring marshes, restoring reefs, supporting our marine economy and our fisheries, protecting businesses and creating good jobs while we do it.
The plan calls for public-private partnerships. The first private partner, Mass Audubon, has pledged $5 million toward the habitat protection. City of Worcester has taken a big financial step forward in making its quest to expand housing and affordability to its residents. The Telegram and Gazette reports that an additional $1.25 million has been put into a fund to incentivize developers to create housing that's both affordable for low-income and moderate-income households. In sports, it's the Red Sox and Yankees, Game 2 of their 4-game series tonight in the Bronx. Big win for the Sox last night. And in the forecast, we're looking at a beautiful sunny day today, high about 80 degrees, clear sky, and low 60s overnight. Mostly sunny, 85 tomorrow, mostly sunny, low 80s on Sunday. Right now, it is 78 degrees in Boston, 76 in Worcester, 77 in Providence. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include ARM. On the latest episode of Tech Unheard, ARM CEO and host Renee Haas talks to musician and activist Peter Gabriel about how tech and AI are helping to shape the future in creativity and innovations.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of BPR. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell here with Harvard's Juliet Kayyem. Good to be through
Good
another
to be here.
hour
I don't know
with
why
you.
I'm waving.
I know, we've been together all morning. Hi.
It's awesome.
Okay, we're in for Jim and Marjorie, and we're live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie's back on Monday. They're both back on Tuesday at the BPL. Mayor Wu will be here Tuesday from 12 to 1, and Josh Kraft Wednesday at noon. So you've made it to the end of your work week. Congratulations, and to another round of Live Music Friday. This week, Boston Music Award-winning Jill McCracken is here with their band ahead of an appearance at the totally free We Make Noise Festival. Jill and others, including songwriter Lady Lamb, are taking over Downtown Crossing tomorrow from noon to 8 p.m. Information at WMM, this is going to be hard for me to say, WMNBoston.org/fest for more info. We're going to talk with festival organizer and singer-songwriter Naomi Westwater in just a second. But first, here's Jill McCracken and friends performing their brand new single, Dependence.
Depend on me now. Ooh, I'm not laughing if it's not funny. I depend on me now. 400, 500 miles between us. I depend on me now. Imagine now with family if you could have seen us. I depend on me now. Big strong. Depend on me now. Oh, love, I depend on me
There you go. That is Jill
amazing.
McCracken and friends. That was great. That was Dependence. And, of course, you can see more of them.
Come on up, Jill.
Taking over Downtown Crossing tomorrow from noon to 8. Welcome to both of you. Thanks so much for coming in. Wow. So this is our second gig this year together. Yes, we actually performed together at First Night on City Hall Plaza.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I was the MC.
Oh, that seems
But next time we're getting Sue on background vocals.
Absolutely.
We're so glad to have you. Can you introduce the great band with you?
Yes, absolutely. On the guitar and background vocals, we have Jason Oberstein.
Yay. Hi, Jason.
On the drums and background vocals, we have Justin Martinez.
Hi, Justin.
And on the bass with us today and background vocals, Brandon Downs.
All right.
Thank you, Brandon. We're so glad to have you all here.
All right, Naomi, thank you so much for coming in with us. Can you talk about what's going to happen tomorrow, what you're doing, what the essence of it is, why should we come see? And I know it's free and it's a great day to do it, but talk all about it.
Well, We Make Noise Fest is our third year and our second year at Downtown Crossing. And We Make Noise Boston is a local nonprofit, and we're working on gender equity in the music tech and music industry. And we have partnered with Mass Now, which is the feminist organization that's been around from the 60s, to put on this festival for the second year. And so we are celebrating women and gender expansive people, musicians, visual artists, and vendors. We are trying to do feminism in a very fun way and activism in a very fun way. We're taking over Downtown Crossing from noon to 8. And it's just going to be, it's become now one of my favorite days of the year. It's going to be a bunch of music, 2 stages, over 25 vendors, over 12
and you
artists.
said it was free.
It's
favorite
free.
kind of concert.
Free. Yeah.
So, like, Naomi, though, it's interesting you say this because as an outsider to the industry,
yes,
and without, I would say, my taste is not.
We're going to get into that later.
We're going to get into this later.
We're going to your taste later.
It looks like an industry where the powerhouses are women, right? So you think about I know everyone says Taylor Swift, but Beyonce. I mean, you think about the big concerts, the experiences. What's the other story there? Because clearly you're experiencing, and the point of this festival is something is not being reflected in the industry.
Yeah, I think we have to first look at what the local sector is happening in the local sector, right? And yes, there have always been women and gender minorities who can break out. But when you look at how many girls and little kids are interested in music at a young age, and then the percentages that actually get opportunities and get jobs go down and down and down as you grow. And when we look at the Billboard numbers of the top producers, the top engineers, the top artists, it is not equal at all. And then when we look at the queer and genderqueer population, the numbers are almost not even chartable. So we still have quite a long way to go. We are not at gender equity. And I would say we're not even at gender equity even when we look at the really big numbers either. You know, 1 or 2 people is an exception, not the rule.
Right. Yeah. And so there's like an iceberg, but underneath it's a lot of old school.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. And it's a business. I mean, what you're describing, you're creating a business around this. It's not just the music. It's producers, marketers, all that stuff behind what makes someone able to perform.
Yes, and I think specifically We Make Noise Boston, we're looking at, first of all, making sure that there's gender equity in the music industry, but in particular in the music tech side, it's even worse. So we're also looking at kind of the STEM aspect of it as well, and kind of seeing how can we make sure that everyone feels safe and welcome in this industry, and that they're given equal opportunity based off of, doesn't matter what their gender is, but also we also see that oftentimes women and gender expansive people are kind of told, go sing. Go sing.
You're the performer.
You can be pretty, but who's actually behind the scenes making a lot of the calls and doing the actual engineering and production work? And there's even bigger disparity there.
Yeah.
So
Jill, I want to ask this question. I ask every artist every time I have an opportunity to. Folks like to put people in categories. They like to put, especially musicians and type of music in categories. And even though we don't really have radio stations the same way we used to, we are still putting artists in categories and types of music. But when you talk to actual performers and singers and songwriters, you don't have a category, right? I always love it at the Grammys when people get up and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe Nile Rodgers is playing with him. Why not? Why wouldn't Nile Rodgers be up there, jamming with his peers?
Right.
What if someone said to you, what category are you in, or why is there no category for you? What would your answer be?
Yeah, I get asked, what's your genre? What kind of music do you play all the time? And what I landed on to say is retro soul, or sometimes I'll say retro soul singer-songwriter. But I would say I personally am not only non-binary in terms of my gender, but just like I'm non-binary in my genre.
There's no category.
You cannot put me in a box. As you can hear, like we also rock sometimes, but like we're not a rock band, you know. But yeah, and the best music borrows from all the best music.
And you have a forthcoming album, but like, do I even use the word album anymore? Like,
yeah, you do.
So there is a thing that has 10 or 9 or 10 songs or however. And how is that going? Like, how would you describe that?
It's going great. We're very excited to be making new music together, my bandmates and I, and we're crowdfunding the album, so that's a whole fun experience because I'm an independent artist all the way through, so I don't have like a record label or like a big bankroller, and I'm not independently wealthy, and so made the decision to try and raise money from the people who love to listen to us and come to our shows. The reception has been really great so far, and I just like having it. The knowledge that it's going to be funded by community love is just makes it so much sweeter.
Naomi, let's stay on money for a second and funding, right? Because we love art. We all want to enjoy it, but someone's got to get paid. Things cost money.
Especially when those tickets are free.
Especially when the tickets are free.
Yeah.
Everyone hear that. They're free.
How's the funding been? How's the sponsorship been? That's the whole business side of this. But, we can all participate by donating, actually, too. But you got to get out there and hustle for the money, right?
Yeah, so we have been very fortunate in the last 2 years. We've partnered with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, and they've given us a grant for this year and last year. And we've also partnered with Downtown Alliance Boston, and they provide a bunch of in-kind, like our stage, our sound, our bathrooms, all of that. But I'm already thinking about next year.
Right.
So part of what's been excited about this festival is it's growing and growing and growing, and that also means that I have to kind of find where we can get funding to meet that demand of growth.
And Lady Lamb is a headliner, and she's a big deal.
Yeah, so I was very excited. And I think the other thing that happens is festival, these relationships take years sometimes to cultivate. You don't just kind of magically pick an artist out of the sky. So there are people that I've been talking to that I'm already thinking about reaching out to them for next year. So all of these things take a long time and this slow growth. And even though it's just one day out of the year that we're celebrating. Yeah.
100 years ago, I worked in the radio and record business, and there was a path, right? You went out, you played, or you went to LA, you went to New York or Memphis or wherever it was, you played. Someone saw you, you got a record deal, you went on the road, they gave you money to make a record. Sometimes you got locked into a really bad contract, sometimes you didn't. You would make most of your money from the record deal and on the road, and hopefully radio stations would play your songs. None of that exists anymore. And I would imagine, what's the path, Jill? It's the great news is there's a full democracy now, right? If you have a guitar, a musical instrument, and you have TikTok or YouTube, you can get out there. But we would hope you would make a living at this as well. It's not just about the love. So what's your path? What do you think you see
I was going to say, Sue, you let me know when you find the path. I
don't. That's why I'm asking you.
I mean, my path has been long and winding. I've been at this for like over 15 years. And it's a lot of trial and error. It's amazing. It's an amazing. It's a bad time and the best time to like be an artist, and because you can do everything independently, and like I'm able to just like go record a song and put it up on the internet. Like you can. There was what was internet before, and you don't have to just sort of like wait around to like play the show and be discovered at the club, but. I don't know. You're also sort of like trying to be discovered. You just keep working at it and like commit to like who you are and what you do, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try to take my own advice here. So,
and now, like, talk to us about Boston for both of you. So, like, you know, people think New York, LA, Nashville for a certain kind of thing.
Boston.
Tell us about why it rocks. Because we're called Boston Public Radio.
Jill and I are ready to go.
Ready to go.
Okay?
Ready to
So
go.
Yeah, no, because
Boston is an incredibly talented music industry. We do not get support. Okay. We do not get the funding. We do not have the policies that other industries do.
And like, what would a policy be? Like, oh, you mean like tax or mentorship? What is it?
No,
like,
it would be really making sure that when you think about Boston, what do you think about? You think about
sports.
Education, sports, medicine. Arts and culture needs to be in that category.
Excellent,
We are incredibly talented. Not only do we get people from all over the world coming to our art and music schools to study, but actual Bostonians born and raised here, or people come here to be a part of this cultural industry. Yeah. So there's also an economic part of it. You know, our industry makes money for the city. So our industry needs to be supported back. The city needs to support us back, and that is through policy. But it's a cultural shift that has to happen, and an understanding that arts and culture is actually a huge part of our city, and that we contribute financially, but to the health and wellness of our city through our culture. And so things like, you know, this festival shouldn't be such a hard lift. It should be very easy. We should have art and culture should be everywhere in the city. It's brimming. And one of my biggest frustrations has been so many artists that I know come here and then they leave and go to other cities. So we're losing our talent. You know,
they
housing,
feel more nurtured there. Like
housing is a huge issue, right? So if you aren't going to pay artists a lot, but it's one of the most expensive cities in the country to live in, where are artists going to go? So it's all of these different things, from the culture of supporting to the culture of making sure artists are fairly paid for all the work that they're doing, to making sure that artists have housing, and all of that. We need to kind of shift the culture so that it is more valuable. And then I'm thinking about it, of course, also from an intersectional feminist lens, right? So artists who are queer, artists who are gender minorities, artists who are artists of color, they also have even more barriers to get work and find housing and all of those things.
And you know, I don't know the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that arts is a bigger revenue driver in the region than sports is, right? And the tax base and the money we give sports and businesses and arenas and all that, I'm all for, but at the same time, we're not supporting arts in the same way that drives the... I've stopped talking about the humanity part of things this year. I'm just talking about money. That drives money into the area. I'm trying to get people to care about these things.
It seems like there's more. I mean, I go to live music or live events a lot, and the price point for some of these has just gotten so prohibitive. It seems like there's more venues. I don't know if anyone's monitoring to see smaller acts, more intimate acts, and therefore less expensive acts, because when your ticket starts at $600,
so, I mean, the pandemic really hurt our smaller venues, and we have not recovered from that. Our sector has not recovered from the pandemic at all, and the pandemic is still happening, and we haven't recovered. So that's a huge thing. There is a huge gap, as there is in capitalism always, like we were saying, from the Taylor Swifts and the Beyoncés and the Jills and Naomis, right? Mm-hmm. So there's lots of opportunity at the very top, lots of money flowing to the very top. The middle and the local arts are really struggling. But I think for our humanity, as well as for our local economy, we do have to support our local artists and our local arts and culture.
We have a YouTuber commenter wants to know, what time is the band playing tomorrow?
Oh, good.
It's going to be just me solo for a special solo set, and it's at 4:15 on the acoustic stage.
All right.
YouTuber.
And the whole festival is also, you have vendors,
Jill,
you have other opportunities. That was your cue to go get ready, because you have a second song, Help Me, Hold Me, Heal Me. And do we turn to the song, or one quick question? What else is going on at the festival besides music? Sell it.
So Boston Women's Market will be there with over 20 vendors and makers. And Mass Now has their art gallery, matriarch themed gallery. So we're going to have over 12 visual artists features. And we do have 2 different stages. So there is music happening the entire day, because everything is main stage and acoustic stage.
Okay,
and did we mention it's free?
Free. Here's Jill McCracken and friends performing Help Me, Hold Me, Heal Me. Take it away.
This is a song about asking for help and how hard that can be, but we all really need each other.
Help me, hold me, heal me, reassure me, tell me, you see me, you hear me, feel me, help me, hold me, heal me. I have trouble on the wind. If all your adoration is showing, how can I know when you walk out the door? You're not rolling your eyes because I asked for more. Asking you to help me, hold me, heal me, yeah. Reassure me, tell me, yeah. You see me, you hear me, feel me, help me, hold me, heal me. I grew up to believe, wanting to feel love isn't a natural need. So how could I know when you come to hold me that you're not gonna turn around, baby, just to scold me? How could I know? 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 Hey, 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 how could I know? Help me, hold me, heal me, reassure me, tell me, you see me, you hear me, you feel me, help me, hold me, heal me, help me, hold me, heal me, yeah, reassure me, tell me, you see me, you hear me, feel me, help me, hold me, heal me.
Thank you so much.
McCracken, thank you. That was terrific. Thanks to them and Naomi Westwater for joining us. They're both performing, both of you, tomorrow at We Make Noise Fest. That's noon to 8 in downtown Crossing. It's free to all. WMNBoston.org/fest for more information. Coming up after this quick break, GBH's Callie Crossley is here. I'm Juliette Kayyem, in for Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Donnell.
I'll take it.
O'Donnell.
I'll take
O'Connell
it. I
in
don't
for Jim
care.
Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com GBH News.
When schools finally reopened after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans 20 years ago, many of the city's veteran educators were replaced by young out-of-towners.
The people that did come down, they were well-meaning, but they weren't trained.
I'm Juana Summers. We hear from opposite sides of that teacher divide on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org. And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition. In Ashby now through September 6th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250. masshumanities.org.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Julia Kayam in for Marjorie Egan. And we are live, of course, from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie back on Monday. Both Jim and Marjorie back on Tuesday at the BPL. Mayor Wu Tuesday, noon to 1. Josh Kraft Wednesday at noon. And we're joined now at the interview desk by Callie Crossley. Good day, Callie Crossley.
Hi, Juliette. How you doing?
The
Nice
host
to
of
see
Under
you.
the Radar with Callie Crossley, which is on Sunday nights from 6 here on 89.7. Also, you can hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And she's also the co-host of GBH's The Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 o'clock right after us on 89.7, including today's Week in Review from the BPL. Hello, Ms. Crossley.
Hello,
How are you?
hello.
Very good to see you.
Hello.
So you're just here all afternoon.
I'm here all afternoon on Fridays.
Well, it's good. I'm so glad to
Yes,
see you.
yes.
Can we just start? It's not silly, but so what do you think of Gavin Newsom's X feed?
Oh, well, it's interesting because on my show Sunday, I'm talking with mass politics profs, and we're talking about that as a strategy. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's a tit-for-tat thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to read some of the tweets so people get it, exactly how it's mimicking, mirroring, copying, whatever words.
The nicknames, the making fun of people, the
slights.
The slights, all
of that stuff. So it's really... I mean, he's having fun with it. Apparently, he replaced his communications team so they can do that. Here's one just to read so people get a sense of it. This is in all caps. This is from the California governor, Gavin Newsom. Dana Ding Dong Perino. People may know that Dana Perino is a spokesperson, or was a spokesperson. Anyway, never heard of her until today, in caps, he writes. Fox hates that I am America's most favorite governor, ratings king. I mean, that's just one of the things.
You know what this strikes me of? It strikes me of if you're ever with a toddler who's really misbehaving and and then you just start acting like the toddler back to the toddler, they freak out because they're like, oh my gosh, why are you acting this way? It also seems to me that he is setting up these ads for the future, right? So when people criticize him, people on the right, conservative commentators, Fox News, say how sacrilegious that you could post this AI-generated photo of you with Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan and Jesus behind you, and he says, "Oh right, I meant to post this," and it's Trump as the Pope that Trump posted, right? So it's this, totally reframing. If you think I'm stupid, what do you think of this guy, the president?
The best part of this is, of course, Dana Perino on Fox, saying things like, "He's the governor of California. He shouldn't be talking this way." Like, isn't he embarrassed? He should be governing. And you're like, okay, I don't use the word cult, but can we look in the mirror and sort of see? You spend 24/7 on this network defending how Trump talks or ignoring it when they can't defend it, and then Newsom is just sort of putting. I like it, and so. And I didn't like it at first. I sort of thought, oh, God, he's just trying to get attention, which he is.
Yeah, of course he is, yeah.
But I like it now because it is sort of a way of putting a mirror to the absurdity of what Trump does through social media and through his media apparatus at Fox News. And that has been impenetrable for a long time, and it looks like there's starting to be some openings in that fortress.
I've just been amazed at the number of people who don't get it, who don't see the connection at all until it's pointed out. So that's pretty. The people on Fox are going to say what they're going to say.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about regular folks. Which I think is
think
interesting.
he's like all of a sudden talks like this, right?
Like what's going on? Yeah.
All right, Callie. So a lot of news happening. Oh boy, more so every day we say this. There's an article, opinion piece in the Boston Globe by Karine Hajar. Immigrants are the losers in the Trump-Wu clash. Of course, looking at Michelle Wu, mayor of Boston, basically saying, I'm not doing anything that isn't lawful to do and doesn't allow to break me up, and meanwhile, back me up. And meanwhile, the Trump administration saying, we're coming to Boston. And, I live right near Jamaica Plain. I live in Roxbury near the Latin Quarter. Streets are dead. Laundromat's empty. El Salvador restaurant is empty. Folks are afraid to come out. What are we doing here?
Well, this is another situation that is not going to get any better anytime soon. So what we can expect, which scares me, is, troops. I'm looking at Washington, D.C. I assume they're coming to Boston soon at some point. I mean, what the columnist is saying, or this author is saying in the piece, is that the WU's consistent pushback against what the Trump administration is saying and their tactics, that many will agree seem to be out of hand, is in the end more harmful to the immigrant communities, because it just, to your point, sends them inside, ratchets up the attention of the Trump administration. And so for cities, as she says here, who continue to have a firm stand, then, he takes that as bait. And let me send some more people there. Let me send some more troops there. Let me see what I can do, because you're not responding.
I think if you're a mayor, my feeling is if you're a mayor in a blue city, in a blue state, it's already done. It's already part of their mapping. You start with D.C., where the National Guard is easier in terms of taking charge of it. Governor Healey's not going to hand... He might take over the National Guard here, as he did in Los Angeles, but he's not going to hand over the National Guard. And so as a mayor of a blue city in a blue state, and you're looking about what's going to happen, do you try to avoid it by maybe being quiet? Or do you think, well, you know what, my community here, and meaning Bostonians, and specifically the immigrant community, have to know that they have support by local government, because this is already written. Someone in the White House has D.C. and then L.A. and then D.C. I would assume Boston's third. I would just assume Boston's third.
I think that if you're Mayor Wu, the only choice you have is to go back on what you've said.
Yeah.
And that's not a good look for her, nor do I think that's what she wants to do, or who she wants to present herself as. So, she's going to stand firm on what she said. We're going to follow the laws as we understand them, and we're not going to do anything but outside of that, the intensity of these raids, the masks, as we now see, law enforcement people are coming forward saying, you've got to stop with these masks.
Yeah.
So it's, the tactics and the manner and the tactics and the language, all of that is not going to change, as you said, directed at certain places. And Boston Boston is where, Harvard is.
Yeah.
So he's got a double whammy here if he's coming for us,
busy.
right?
Well, I have to admit that Sue has a new culture icon.
Who is that? Besides you?
The AG.
Oh, yes, the AG.
Oh,
I'm an AG.
About culture.
I'm an AG.
We have to play it.
We do. So I just want to say I feel bad, and I had hesitancy when this story first broke, because I always hate making a big deal of someone's worst moment, one would hope, on this planet.
Yeah.
But then as I kept watching this video, it just never ended for me. And I envision, maybe taking a recreational something or other and sitting on the couch and watching it over and over and watching the individuals in this. Of course, let's just take a listen to the climactic end of the Rhode Island Special Assistant Attorney General Devin Hogan Flanagan's finger quotes dispute with law enforcement outside of Clark Cookhouse.
I'm an AG.
She's an AG. Honey, you're not. She's not being arrested. Let's go.
I'm not being arrested. You're putting me in cuffs. I'm not being arrested.
Do you have any weapons on you?
No. Buddy, you're gonna regret this.
Yeah.
You're gonna regret it. I'm an AG.
So
the cop closing the door on the A. Now, can you set this up? Why is she being...
So they were asked to leave this restaurant.
Yeah.
They did not. The maitre d'... Now, this is a resort area.
Yes.
This
And
is the
she
summertime.
yes.
And so for and for anybody who has a liquor license to actually call the police, it means they're at their wits' end.
Yes.
Just so we're setting the table here.
Right.
It wasn't just somebody who was annoyed. They called the police. They came. You can see the maitre d' make the prayer hands, like, please make them leave. Please, this woman, this other woman, and one of their husbands. The police came and said, you're trespassing. You need to leave. They want you to leave. They were outside. And she said, you didn't tell me I was trespassing, which, of course, he just did. Mm-hmm. And then they urged them to leave.
Yeah.
And they never left. And it just kept escalating. the lesson here, I think, Callie, we had a youth group here during the week, and I said, what'd you learn from that video? And they said, if the police tell you to leave, you should leave, if you think you're doing something wrong. What was your take on all this?
Well, my take after reading this detailed story, my take on it, just the incident itself, is mortifying.
Yeah.
I'm just mortified on her behalf. And let's go back to the context that you set with the maitre d' and the bartender. At a resort area, this means that the context in which they are working all the time is they've seen crazy.
Yeah.
They know drunk. They know out of hand. They
As
know
do
it.
the police
Yes,
responders. The
exactly.
police in resort areas
Yes,
have
they
the
already
most
know.
patience.
Right. So by the time they get to the point where we can't
Their
control
floor
it,
is low. It's hard to get lower.
Exactly. All right. So that already tells you what the situation was, and then to have this constant "I'm an AG," and you're not following the law is weird. And then to read that her boss is, that people are mad because they want her to be fired. They should be fired. And Republicans are gleefully saying, hey, Democrats say nobody's above the law, so she's not above the law. Why isn't she fired? And her boss is saying, well, it's really hard to get good prosecutors, so I'm trying to figure out, what do I do here?
That was the weirdest comment. His response to this just added another layer of bizarre about it to me. Like, I have a hard time hiring people. He also put himself first. He also said she did this to me, not to the people of Rhode Island.
The people
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Either way he goes, at this point, sends a message of some sort.
Yeah.
And, it's a rock and a hard place, and you gotta, it's a message. Whatever, if you decide to fire her, that's a message. If you decide not to fire her, that's a message. Something's gonna have to happen, though, but action must be taken.
I also was fascinated by the gender reversal of this, where one of the husbands, I don't think it was her husband, but the woman she was with, he was the one who was standing with his hands in front of him, and at one point his hands up, trying to tell everybody just to calm down. And I wonder if he's thinking, finally, she'll get to rehab. This is great. See you, honey. I'm right here. Bye-bye, right here.
It is, the penalty part is difficult because maybe this was just a bad moment, or they were celebrating something, or whatever. But
Julia,
it is
how do you
lesson.
not know what the law is around cameras?
No, but it is a lesson.
What's the lesson?
That everything is recorded. And I have to say, I am only better about my road rage because, not because I've gotten more mature in life, but because I worry that someone's going to get a picture of me doing something not nice, right? We're all going to be, that everything is recorded.
I know, but in this case, the fact that she doesn't know the law to know to tell, telling the cops.
And I'm an AG.
They're telling the cops you have to turn off your cameras. What? What are you talking about?
I'm going to use my power against you. That to me, when she said that, it was like, you're going to regret this.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Also, just, for the record, if you're in a situation, don't be lecturing the law to a police officer when they're telling you to leave. Just go ahead and go.
Just go. Especially when he said you're not arrested. I'm like, okay, we're out of here.
Right. And people are counting how many times you say, I'm an AG.
I'm an AG.
It's not a good look.
I'm an AG. All right, let's go to another great piece of sound, Callie. We've got some good stuff. This is sound from the latest South Park episode. The character Towelie, a walking, talking towel, for those of you who don't know. He goes to D.C. during the police takeover, and during his sightseeing trip, he sees armed troops and tanks everywhere.
Oh, wow! Union Station! Wow, the Supreme Court! Wow, Washington Memorial! Oh, the Capitol!
So, of course, in a time of trauma and acquiescence, South Park is standing up.
Yeah.
The main guy, just signed a $1.5 billion 5-year deal.
I thought I misread that. I was like,
no. Well,
I know people watch South Park, but I was like, 1.5 billion.
You're in the wrong business, Julia.
I am in the wrong business.
Well, it's not just the watching, it's a universe with, merch and this and that and repeats and blah, blah, blah. I think for me what's interesting is that this is Paramount.
I know.
Hello, this is a deal just got made with CBS and Paramount. One part of the deal says that throughout, not just in the news department, should be a bias assessor, right? So guess they'll assess the bias.
And it's rumored
I don't know,
that
it's weird.
bias assessor of the CBS News division is going to be this woman, Bari Weiss, who a lot of people know, who is not unbiased and is a bit of I think she's a bit of a charlatan. She sort of like creates a lot of outrage, ready to criticize anyone but her race, anyone else who sort of asserts equities and stuff. And that would be the end of, I mean, as far as I know, if you have to pass stuff through Bari Weiss, if you're CBS News, it's sort of the end of CBS News as we know in terms of it. But it's not quite clear what that role is going to be.
I think it's the end of CBS News to be passing stuff through a bias.
Period.
So there we go.
Right.
But the fact that here they are sitting right in the middle of this saying, here's what we're going to do. And I guess the other episode, I don't watch them.
The other one was, the first one was like, I got a little, yes. Well, everyone knows it was a nude Trump on his back. So let's just put it that way. So,
with Satan as his partner.
Yes.
So they're standing up. So also, we've been all doing this long enough that sometimes we know that you never know exactly what the tipping point is going to be, who the icon is going to become, who the face of a revolution will be. And although the human race has a long history of throwing tomatoes up on stage and throwing food at people, throwing popcorn, throwing rocks. The DC sandwich guy, the DOJ employee who threw what we believe to be former employee, thank you, what we believe was a Subway sandwich. It wasn't that big of a sacrifice, but nonetheless, who threw the sandwich has become a resistance icon. Is this a moment that people are relating to?
I went to look at the Etsy website of the woman who's making the prints from this, that she's giving all the profits away. And she's made an incredible amount of money already to various organizations, social justice organizations. And it's quite amazing. There are stars, there's the Subway sandwich, and then on the bottom of one of them it says Free DC. And they're selling like hotcakes, as my mother would say. I'm not surprised that symbols that would seem not to be a symbol the day before becoming one. I'm not surprised by that at all. And looking at the comments on her Etsy website as people are purchasing, yes, good, about time somebody did this. So people are feeling very inspired as a way to speak back. I think someone kind of wrote that and said, I feel a little powerless, and this is some energy that at least this guy through the sandwich.
I think this sort of silly, the fact it was a Subway sandwich and then people are commenting, well, their bread is soft and it wasn't a harm. Like, let's just make it clear, you should not throw things at police officers.
Or anyone.
But I think there's two pieces to this. I mean, one is obviously people are very frustrated that their politics are not reflecting their own anger, and this is why the Democratic Party is so unpopular right now. And so you're going to get these people who sort of fill in the blanks. I think the national enthusiasm for the Mondani in New York is the same way. It's like we're not getting it in any other. Democrats feel like they're not getting it in any other level, but this. His move, just to point out what this DOJ and FBI are like, was followed by a video made of his arrest. He works at DOJ. He wasn't. He was willing to turn himself in.
Right.
And instead, they make like a pseudo snuff film. I called it, where you have 12 FBI agents fully geared knocking on his door, and he's like in a sweatshirt, and he's like, "Okay, I'll go in." Yeah. But they need the performative aspect back of his sandwich, and they got it in the little film.
And they've charged him in a way that he could, go to prison for 8 years. I mean, this is serious business.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And let's not forget that he threw the sandwich while saying, "Get out of my city," the troops that are sent there.
Yeah,
so,
and but I mean, the interesting thing is these are DC juries, and we are starting to see grand juries. It's almost impossible not to get an indictment out of a grand jury, not be willing to charge some of these people that, challenged ICE. Or now we may see this in terms of the National Guard, that there's been a couple instances where the grand jury is like, Really? You're going to charge this guy with a federal 8 years for him spitting on
Julia,
an ice?
there's good precedent here. If he gets convicted, I mean, the January 6th attackers were pardoned. I think there's a good chance that he will be pardoned if he's convicted
I don't
of
think
this.
so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
I think the chances he gets through a grand jury are zero. And then that's what you're going to see in terms of Jean Pirro, who's the U.S. attorney for D.C., is she's going to keep bringing these cases and keep bumping up against grand juries that are unwilling to.
Well, Jean Pirro is performing. That's her whole, character and her whole background.
And the way they
that's
talk,
just way.
exactly.
That's what that's how she is. So that's of course she's going to follow this through as much as she can.
I mean, if he threw a drink in someone's face, she might be angrier about it. But nonetheless,
I'm not commenting on that. I'm just going to say that it is fascinating to see this has turned into something, and I'll be interested to see how long it lasts.
But it's something interesting you just said, which I had not thought about. That it's such a performative administration, right? You think of Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Hegseth with their manly push-ups and stuff. Like everything is for some image that maybe it's not that surprising that a Governor Newsom or the guy with the sandwich become the performative response, because the Senator Schumer standing there saying I'm writing a letter isn't doing it for people.
And people don't feel as though, to your point, that they're being heard or seen. And understood to be upset about this, that this is making them mad. You know?
Well, thank you for being here. Well, you get to stay here. We've been speaking with Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which airs Sunday nights at 6 here on 89.7. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Coming up after this quick break, it takes two to tango, and it takes two things to fill the final 5 minutes of our 12 o'clock hour. Those two things are next. I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, President Donald Trump says he'll end mail-in ballots, the California governor's snarky clapback to White House policies, and Boston's early voters cast ballots for mayor next week. A full hour with the mass politics profs. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition. In Ashby now through September 6th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250. masshumanities.org. And the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, presenting Van Gogh, the Roulin Family Portraits, featuring Van Gogh's portraits of the Roulin family and the deep bonds of friendship behind them. On view through September 7th. More at mfa.org.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Sue O'Connell, and for Jim Browdy, she is Julia Kayyem. We're just going to butcher each other's names.
No, exactly.
We've only known each other for 30 years. What
whatever.
the heck? All right. She's in for Marjorie Egan. We're live here at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie's back on Monday. Jim and Marjorie back on Tuesday at the BPL. Mayor Wu, Tuesday noon to 1, and Josh Kraft is scheduled for Wednesday at noon. And now it's time for the stellar Two More Things segment, where
What's on your mind?
Well, I want to talk about what happened down in Florida overnight in the dark of night, where Florida removed the rainbow crossing that was painted in honor of the victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting, which happened back in 2016. It happened in the middle of the night, which is always an indicator that someone doesn't want you to know what's going on. Governor DeSantis, now remember this is the state where you've got all sorts of anti-LGBT laws and sentiment going on. DeSantis said in a social media post, "We will not allow our state roads to be commandeered for political purposes." This is a memorial of people shot, a mass shooting. It's not necessarily a pro-gay, it's pro-life, if you will, and let's arrest terrorists or gun owners, gun shooters,
This was
and
an
illegal
ISIS. This was an ISIS-inspired killing. The biggest in the United States.
Right. So we can't have any rainbow on the ground, remembering those who fought and rescued, and just the whole thing, because it's clearly a political statement to DeSantis. I would remind folks that on a regular basis, we support towns that get upset if their Italian flag has been removed from the middle of the road. We are an entire nation of people who have different points of view that all come together to support the Constitution. This is just another embarrassment for Florida. That's what's on with me.
And he did it in the middle of the night.
Middle of the night.
And then he gives the tough act. Okay, so
what's on your mind, Juliet? Very
end
serious.
of summer, I get very sad, and I just was thinking on my drive here as I was listening to my favorite Sirius XM station known as Yacht Rock, that we don't talk enough about Yacht Rock. I'm looking at people. I've got the musicians.
The musicians
smiling.
are agreeing.
Okay, so Yacht Rock is a soft rock music that emerged in the late 1970s and 1980s and it's characterized by smooth, mellow sounds. Kenny Loggins is sort of Christopher Cross, sailing, and it's just like if you just want to hold on to the summer vibe as we're sort of heading into fall. I think that it is underappreciated, underloved, and not talked about enough, even though the lyrics are often insane. Here's one of my favorites. Look, I've got so many on. Listen to this line.
The albatross and the whales are my brother.
The albatross and the whales are my brother. But anyway, we go with it, right? We go with it. So
it wasn't yacht rock when it was born. It became yacht rock
looking back, and it was like the idea that you're like sitting on a boat and everything.
To cool grooves from white guys with mustaches and beards and long hair and guitars.
I want you to do.
Bread.
See, you're totally into it.
Listen, I'm old enough to have listened to this on the radio on WRKO Live.
There was a lot of chest hair in Yacht Rock.
Yes.
I will say that, because if you look at the album covers,
shirtless,
lots of men thought
skinny,
they were good looking. Skinny.
Skinny.
Yeah, very skinny. Lots
the kind
of chest
of men
hair.
that my mother warned me not to get in the van with if they pulled up along Revere Beach.
Unless they were Kenny Loggins.
Exactly, that would be fine.
And he was singing "I'm All Right" or whatever it is. Anyway, I'm feeling a little bit blue as we head towards the end of summer and Labor Day. So I was just thinking, what's putting me in that summer mood? And it is, in fact, Yacht Rock.
Yacht Rock, yes.
Thank you. I love it here. Look, no one can see you all, but we've got more engagement from the audience on Yacht Rock, right? Thank you guys. So that's my 2 cents, 2 minutes, whatever it is. Let's talk about Yacht Rock a lot more. That was Kenny Loggins' 1979 classic. This is it. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news.
Oh, she's got her FM radio voice on. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news.
Yeah, we got to do the Yacht Rock.
Yes.
It's groovy time in the 1 o'clock. I actually think Cy Montgomery is groovy. I saw her over there. She is a fan of Yacht Rock. We're going to ask her that first. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, we go from Yacht Rock to Animal Authority. Naturalist Cy Montgomery zooms in from Hancock, New Hampshire. I'm Juliet Kayyem, in for the groovy Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Connell, in for the
Rockin' Jim Browdy.
Rockin' Jim Browdy. Thank you for saving me. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Kenny Loggins, everyone.
Help fund the news and reporting you trust by donating your old car, truck, boat, or other vehicle to GBH. Learn more about our vehicle donation program online at gbh.org/vehicle donation.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Compass on the Bay, an assisted living community in South Boston for those with Alzheimer's and related dementias, with research-based therapeutic programming for those with memory loss. More at compassonthebay.com. And Acera School in Winchester, committed to cultivating curiosity for grades K through 9, from woodworking to fine arts, engineering, and physics. Acera's teachers are dedicated to unlocking each student's potential. More at aceraschool.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan, ahead on hour number 3 of BPR, live from BPL. As new research shows that humans' connection with nature has declined 60% over the past 200 years, we risk an ongoing extinction of experience. We'll talk about that and other Animal Kingdom headlines with naturalist and author Cy Montgomery.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. Then we'll end the week with the youths and a totally unbiased examination of other generations. Like, why does Gen Z hate talking on the phone? And what's up with that death stare? Whatever gripe and complaint the olds have about the kids these days, we want to hear them. And yes, Gen Z, please roast us boomers too. Next on the third hour of BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The FBI has conducted a search of the home of former Ambassador John Bolton. Bolton served as National Security Advisor during President Trump's first term, but has since become a fierce critic of the president. NPR's Ryan Lucas is covering developments.
It's important to say that we don't have the full details of what exactly the search of Bolton's home is all about. FBI Director Kash Patel, for his part, he did not mention Bolton directly in a tweet today, but he did post after news broke that, quote, "No one is above the law, FBI agents on mission." But certainly, a search like this of the home and office of a prominent critic of the president adds to concerns about whether the Justice Department and the FBI are pursuing a campaign of retribution against the president's perceived enemies.
NPR's Ryan Lucas reporting on the FBI search of the Washington, D.C. area home of John Bolton. Stocks soared today after Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell signaled a possibility of lowering interest rates in the months to come. NPR's Scott Horsley reports Powell spoke to a gathering of economists and central bankers in Jackson Hole, Wyoming today.
Powell didn't offer any guarantees of a rate cut at the next Fed meeting in September, saying he and his colleagues will continue to monitor incoming data on inflation and the job market. But Powell did say, given current economic conditions, lower interest rates may be warranted. That was enough to rally investors who were already betting that a rate cut is likely when Fed policymakers gather in 3.5 weeks. Powell also said President Trump's tariffs are causing some price hikes, but he added it's hard to know how big or long-lasting those increases will be. At the same time, Trump's crackdown on immigration is limiting growth in the workforce. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The Trump administration says the federal government will have 300,000 fewer employees on its payroll by the end of the year. That is about a 12% cut. That number first reported by the New York Times. NPR's Andrea Hsu has details.
Shrinking the federal workforce has been a focus of President Trump since he returned to office. His Department of Government Efficiency got right to work, offering incentives for people to leave and then working inside agencies to identify deep workforce cuts. Now the Office of Personnel Management says by the end of December, the government will have shed about 300,000 employees. About half of those opted for the administration's deferred resignation program. Others have been summarily fired or laid off as part of agency reorganizations. Many still remain on the government payroll through the end of September. OPM spokesperson McLaurin Pinover told NPR there are no plans at this time for additional reductions in force. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
The Dow is up 919 points. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts State Police are investigating a stabbing that took place today at Logan Airport. A state police official says one person suffered non-life-threatening injuries but was taken to a Boston hospital for care. Spokesperson for the Transportation Security Administration did not comment, and a spokesperson for Massport referred the questions and comments to the state police. Details are few right now, and state police say more information will be available at a later time. Hamden District Attorney's Office has declined to pursue a new trial in connection with the 1984 Springfield murder. New England Public Media's Adam Frenier has more.
Edward Wright was convicted in 1985 in the death of Penny Anderson. The defendant maintained his innocence, and on his sixth attempt for a new trial, he was successful earlier this year. The judge cited evidence that was withheld from Wright and false testimony by a witness. In announcing his decision to forego a new trial, District Attorney Anthony Gallooni said he believes Wright was not wrongfully convicted, but with the loss of key witnesses and the passage of time, it was not feasible to retry the case. Stephanie Hartung is an attorney with the New England Innocence Project who represented Wright. She says her client was relieved by the news.
It's not pure, unadulterated joy because it comes on the heels of 41 years of a tragic injustice, and no one should have to wait that long for the truth to come out.
Wright had been free on personal recognizance since last month.
Adam Frenier reporting. 80 degrees in Boston. Now back to Sue and Juliet, the Loggins and Messina of GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of BPR. I'm NBC 10's Kenny Loggins, and you are...
No, I'm Kenny Loggins. That's Loggins. So unfair.
Messina?
Yeah.
Loggins
the forgotten Messina.
Yeah, the forgotten Messina. That hurts. One of our anonymous texters says, back in the 80s, we called what is now yacht rock wimp rock.
Yeah. You know what? I'm still standing. I don't care what you called it. I am still in defense of the Kenny Loggins of the world.
All right, we're joined now on Zoom by the pride of Hancock, New Hampshire, which we've been talking about quite a bit over the past couple of weeks, naturalist and author Cy Montgomery. Her latest book is What the Chicken Knows, A New Appreciation of the World's Most Familiar Bird. Hello, Cy. Welcome.
Hi, Cy.
Oh, what fun to be with the two of you.
Oh, okay.
Can I be one of the Beatles?
Yeah,
sure,
okay,
sure.
That's not yacht rock, though. So I felt like maybe I'd have a friend in yacht rock in you.
Paul McCartney.
But Beatles
Paul McCartney, but there are some Wings.
The Wings, that's true.
The Wings.
Okay, we're going to update it a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you wanted to talk about your work. I'm sorry. We want to talk about yacht rock, but I'm so thrilled to finally meet you. I've been listening and reading for a long time, and there's so many topics that we wanted to cover. Like, should we start with the?
Let's go with the seal.
The seal.
I think we should go with the seal. Okay.
That's so appropriate because seals should be on yacht rock.
All right, let's take a listen.
Why is that?
Okay, well, let's take a listen
Let's take
first.
a listen.
Okay, here are some of the leopard seal mating songs. Tell us what they sound like to you. Go ahead.
Are we playing some?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oddly, I can't hear them.
Yeah, it's okay, though. We can.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Okay, I'm getting tired. I should listen to that to go to bed.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, I know what they sound like, even though I couldn't hear what you were playing. For some reason.
So what are those? What are the seals, and what were we just listening to?
These are male leopard seal songs. And a lot of us know that many whale species sing, but many folks don't know that there are seals who sing as well. And the leopard seals, the males, are amazing virtuosos. They will sing every night from late October to early January. These seals, they live on the pack ice in the Southern Ocean.
Wow.
And they're just singing their hearts out. And this really interesting new study just came out in Nature that found that their songs exhibit the same kind of predictability as human nursery rhymes, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and Ring Around a Rosie, and which is actually about, I think,
the plague.
Plague, yes.
And we forget that part.
Yeah, I know.
So my desire to sort of, like, maybe this would now be my background sound, sleep sound, are the males singing as as courtship, or do we know why they're singing so much?
We're pretty sure that they're singing to attract females. The females will sing a little bit, but they will sing when they're on heat. But the males, probably like humpback whales, are singing to attract females. And this may be why their songs are so predictable. The researchers compared their songs to various human songs, classical songs, and I think they even compared them to my favorites, the Beatles. And they found that they most closely resembled in their predictability nursery rhymes. And why would you want your song to be so predictable? Well, if you're singing over multiple days for so long, you want to be you want your message to be consistent. You don't want to go off brand. You want to say, I am here, I am handsome, I am strong. I want to be the father of your seal pup. And so that is probably why the songs are this way. They are not simple because they're so stupid they can't come up with something more complex.
Yeah.
They are probably, say the researchers, simple so that they can continue night after night after night, hour after hour, month after month, singing the same song. And you can hear these songs, by the way. I was just actually at the New Bedford Whaling Museum.
Yeah.
And there's an exhibit. My friend Perry Lynch actually did it. It's an acoustic exhibit of underwater songs. And the Leopard Seal is one of the real virtuosos, and you can definitely pick out their voices.
We're speaking with Cy Montgomery, who is just telling us all these wonderful things about seals, right?
I know, because the seal sounded like a whale, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Like I was, so I'm going back to this mating thing. I would like to continue with the sales, because this is fascinating. So does each male have their own song? So that I'm going to repeat that song over and over, so the female knows that I'm the one that's of this pool of seals is courting her.
Each song is unique, but each song seems to be composed of repeating patterns of 5 types.
Wow.
So the types are double trill, then there's a hoot with a low single trill. There's a low descending single trill, which is my favorite one. Then a medium single trill. And did I mention the high double trill? And it's amazing, these are big animals. They can be 1,000 pounds. And yet their voices are so high and so delicate, you might think that this is a song made, by a songbird maybe, or a cricket. Yeah. But it's made from this huge animal who hunts penguins.
It's amazing. It's amazing. We love hearing that. I can't wait to hear Juliet's version of this on her Yacht Rock station.
Yeah, now we're going to have Animal Yacht Rock. There's go. Yacht Rock Soul. Don't get me started. I know every Yacht Rock station. Okay.
So there's a story in the Guardian by Patrick Barkham talking about some research that Professor Miles Richardson has done. And he says that people risk, quote, extinction of experience, end quote, in the natural world, and says that people's connection to nature has declined more than 60% since the 1800s, saying this also sort of mirrors what's happening in the real world. Some of this obviously is understandable in the progress that humans have made. Even probably the most wealthy person from the 1800s did have, and locked away person had more engagement with nature than we do, just because of the way the world is. But why are people worried about this number?
Well, it's cutting us off from everything that made us human. Mm-hmm. Because throughout our existence until about 5 minutes ago, we were hunter-gatherers who were embedded in this matrix of the natural world. And people are longing to reconnect with nature. And we know what happens when you're cut off from nature. You get, all of a sudden, you notice that there's more plastic in the ocean than fish. All of a sudden, you notice that you've ruined the climate. And temperatures are rising and everything is on fire. And there's also something called nature deficit disorder that, was coined by Richard Louvre, which is what happens to children when they don't have access to nature anymore. And it results in a drop of attentiveness, a drop in creativity, a rise in anxiety. So it's important for us to live in and appreciate the natural world. Many people are so hungry for this that all kinds of things like forest bathing, have you all heard of forest bathing?
Yep.
Shinrin, what is it? Shinrin Yoku. It started in Japan. It started being popular in, like, I think the 30s. But there's a movement, and people will take you out in the forest and let you refresh your senses by being in the forest. It's horrifying that 37% of Americans spend less than 30 minutes a day in a green space. 1 in 5 spend less than 15 minutes in a green space. And in one of the cities that was mentioned in the article, and this was in Sheffield in South Yorkshire, and we think of Yorkshire as being a beautiful green expanse, but horrifyingly, people on average who live there spent 4 minutes and 36 seconds in nature, and that was it. So, I mean, I'm trying to fix this problem.
It's interesting.
Come out and join me. And,
It's interesting because this aligns with sort of new data on kids and phones, which we like to, get mad at kids for being on their phones too much. But it actually, when kids are interviewed, this is a new study that's been out, and it basically says the reason why kids are on phones is because it's a space where their parents aren't. In other words, the hovering parent, the helicopter parenting that's such a part of the way people parent now has made kids want to find an area where their parents aren't. They're finding it on the phones. They would prefer, at least in all the polling, to find it outside. That their favorite thing to do is to run into other kids from the neighborhood, and do a pickup game of soccer or run out in fields. They would rather do that. It's their parents that aren't allowing it. So we have to get the kids and people like you together and get everyone outside again. But I think it's going to change the way we think about parenting as well and what kids need. We blame them for the phones.
To run into the woods,
Yeah, that's what they want, and it's our parenting
you're about
that's
30 years old, but I'm 67. And what people my age did, I grew up on an army base, so I was a complete mutant.
Yeah.
But we ran into the woods, and we built tree forts, and
Ding Dong Ditch. Remember Ding Dong Ditch, where you would ring someone's doorbell and then run to the yards behind and freak out all the moms who thought someone was at their door.
Yeah, but we were outside, and now our kids don't go outside, and they have to go to
But part of that is us. I think part of it is not to blame the kids. I mean, part of it is there is a good reason to get our kids outside besides getting them off their phone. Let's connect with nature.
All right, Si, we want to change gears here and talk about something that is flying around, a green parrot that has, along with its parasites, shared a way to try to stay alive, keep the species going, avoid extinction. Can you talk to us a little bit about this parrot that is found only in New Zealand and what the story about it is?
Oh, I can speak very intimately about this. The kakapo is a giant, flightless, nocturnal, ground-dwelling, burrow-dwelling parrot.
Wow.
It's so unparrot-like. They weigh about 10 pounds. Their feathers smell like honey.
Yeah.
And when I went to visit them to do a book on them back in 2008, there were fewer than 90 of them in the world, and they only lived on this one island, Wenahua, known as Codfish Island to some people. And every single bird was monitored. It had, telemetry on it. The birds who were nesting actually had nest minders who slept in tents and were alerted whenever the bird left the nest so that they could watch and make sure that nothing bad happened to the baby. I mean, talk about helicopter parents. Yeah. We were the helicopter parents to these animals. They were probably the most endangered birds in the world. And I had the surprise, and I suppose on his part, great pleasure, of having one of these extremely rare parrots attempt to copulate with my head.
We have a picture of it. Let's show a picture of the.
Those watching on YouTube. That's terrific.
Yes.
Wow, it's huge.
It's a huge parrot.
Yeah.
And so what happens? They're nocturnal, and this particular parrot, his name is Sirocco. And because they're all so rare,
of course,
if there's ever any problem in the nest, they pull the egg and they raise the bird in captivity. Well, Sirocco got raised in captivity, and he didn't realize he was a parrot. He thought maybe he might be a person. Mm-hmm. And so that was his choice of mate. And so when the mating season came around, which didn't happen every year or even every other year, I waited 5 years to do this book with Nick Bishop, the photographer. When finally the mating season was here, he would lurk in the bushes. And at night, if you left the hut where the researchers were, there was a single building on the entire island, and only researchers and volunteers were there. And there was a latrine. So you'd get up in the night and you'd stagger out to the latrine, and that's where he would attack. You'd be like trying to do this, normal, natural errand, and you'd be sexually assaulted by a 10-pound parrot. And he would climb up. They can't fly. So they would climb up your back with their scaly, tough claws, and they'd reach the top of your head, and they would hold on to your head, and then as they tried to mate with you, they would whack you in the face with one wing, and then the other wing, and then
lovingly.
The other wing.
And they meant it lovingly.
It was something. It was something.
We had
why are they endangered? Maybe that's
it.
We
had their choice.
We had a pet bunny, Nibbles, who I had a number of run-ins with Nibbles that I wasn't completely consenting to, but it was okay. Now, the interesting, other than all of this interesting part of it here, is the parasite part of it, Si, with the parrot. We get to our disconnect from nature.
Yeah.
We
say parasite.
And you freak out. Like,
say,
get the bleach out. Let's kill it. Let's get rid of it. But they actually, these parasites play an important part, not only with the parrots going on their species, but also good with us. How do the parasites and the parrot come together? And folks are worried the parasites aren't recovering to the degree that the parrots are.
Yeah, the parasites are going extinct. There used to be, they actually had this wonderful job. I mean, I want to apply for this. These scientists combed through 220 parrot poops, some of which were 1,000 years old, looking for which parasites lived in the kakapo. Kakapo used to be so abundant that you would shake a tree and they would fall out of the tree like apples. This is what happened when the Westerners came for the first time to New Zealand. They were on the mainland. They weren't just on this one place. Well, there used to be 14 different parasites, several of which only lived in kakapo.
Oh.
And a bunch of them has gone extinct. So is this a problem? Like you said, parasites don't get a lot of love, but we do not know how parasites and host always interact. There are some parasites that are good for you and that co-evolve with you. In fact, in humans, there is a parasite that can help you out. People who have immune system disorders, people who have actually MS, there's certain parasites that if they're in that person, it helps stimulate their immune system and helps them recover. So not all parasites are bad, and most parasites don't want to kill their host.
Right.
They want their host to stay alive. So, and you think of this too, everyone listens to the stories about the human microbiome, and that most cells on and in our body are not human cells.
Yeah.
They're other things. And so parasites fall into that category. And I remember when the first invertebrate red data book came out in 1983. This was a book of endangered invertebrate animals, invertebrates meaning things like clams and snails and insects and worms. And it included the pygmy hog-sucking louse. And this parasite was a parasite of the pygmy hog. And the pygmy hog was going extinct, and so was the pygmy hog sucking louse. I remember the Wall Street Journal was like making fun of the Red Data Book, saying, why do we even need this? Who cares if the pygmy hog sucking louse goes extinct? But the pygmy hog sucking louse may actually be helping out the pygmy hog. And we do not know how important they are to their life cycle. And part of the problem is that they may be going in kakapo, they may be going extinct because we're being so careful that no pathogen ever touches the babies. You know, if you're raising them in an incubator, they may not be getting exposed to everything they need, and that includes the parasites.
So, and this ecosystem, so it's like, that's what's so fascinating about what you write about and talk about is this little piece that you think is nothing, then is going to have ripple effects through, you know, you think of parasite, who cares about the parasite, whatever, but it's actually, it could be keeping the species alive or have other benefits that we don't even consider, but that a smart doctor or someone else might view as beneficial even to the human species.
Yes, exactly. And this is why it's worrisome when you think about, oh, you know, I don't like mosquitoes. Maybe we can wipe them all out.
Yeah, that's me, I admit.
Well, I mean, I totally understand. No one likes being chewed by mosquitoes, and I have been practically sanguinated by mosquitoes in various places in the world. But we need them because everyone's part of the earth, and we can't. I mean, we already are playing God in so many ways. I think we need to take a step back and say, look, we are part of this incredible web of life, and everything here could be doing something wonderful that we don't even know about. And that kind of stimulates your sense of awe, doesn't it? You know, that something that you think of as a nuisance could in fact be doing something wonderful.
And not even a nuisance. I mean, you sent us this wonderful story about beavers, that if we paid a little bit more attention to helping beavers where they're going to build their dams, that actually it could have a benefit for us and how we live in a world of a changing climate.
Instead of just getting rid of them and saying they're flooding fields, we should be looking at what they're doing, right?
Yes, absolutely. And those who are worried about a field flooding or a culvert being clogged, there is an answer, and it is called the beaver deceiver. And it was invented by my friend Skip Lyle. And what this does is, see, to a beaver, a culvert is a little hole in a big dam, and you need to fix that problem. So they clog it up. And they're triggered to do this by the sound of the flowing water that makes them know, like, oh, there's a hole in my bucket, I better fix it. So what he created, Skip Lyle, he had a degree in wildlife biology, but importantly, he was a construction worker, like a beaver. So he came up with this wonderful blow device that you can put in. He puts it in for you. And these are in place all over North America, and I'm sure there's also in Europe as well, because they have beavers as well, that will allow the beavers to stay where they are, but it won't flood your field or your roads. And that way you get the beaver benefits without any beaver problems.
Right. It's cheaper than a contractor, too. Well, Cy, we're running up against our time. It's been so wonderful having you here today. We've been speaking with naturalist and author Cy Montgomery. Thank you, and have a wonderful weekend. Coming up after this break. This is about the time when I guest co-host and I'm like, this is a long show and it's so fun, but I need a nap. And I'm 2:17. I'm on a nap after this is over. Coming up after this quick break, Sue and I are going to examine Gen Z. We're opening phone and text lines. What do you wish you could understand about younger generations? Oh God, we sound old. And for Gen Z, Millennial, and Gen Alpha listeners, what do you wish you understood about honorable ancients like us? I'm Juliette Kayyem, in for the Honorable Elder Marjorie Egan. She's Sue O'Connell, in for the Honorable Ancient Jim Browdy. I'm joking. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Come for questions of the elders.
When schools finally reopened after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans 20 years ago, many of the city's veteran educators were replaced by young out-of-towners.
The people that did come down, they were well-meaning, but they weren't trained.
I'm Juana Summers. We hear from opposite sides of that teacher divide on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, presenting Van Gogh, the Rouland Family Portraits, featuring Van Gogh's portraits of the Rouland family and the deep bonds of friendship behind them. On view through September 7th. More at mfa.org. And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Juliette Kayyem in for Marjorie Egan. And we are live here at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie's back Monday. Jim and Marjorie are back on Tuesday at the BPL. Mayor Michelle Wu, Tuesday noon to 1, and Josh Kraft, her challenger, on Wednesday at noon. All right, folks, there's a piece in the Washington Post, okay? It meticulously documents some of the defining quirks and habits of Gen Z, and those are people born between 1997 and 2012. And it treats them as if they were an alien species that kind of crash landed in an Iowa cornfield. But instead of little green people, they are now 20-somethings, and here's what it is. They're afraid to pick up the phone and make a phone call. And in place of some strange alien language that they use, there's a constant barrage of emojis that they send, or voice memos that they send, or my favorite, the Gen Z blank stare.
I'm doing it now.
That's
Your
what it
kids
looks
are all
like.
Gen Z, right?
I got one, and she's Gen Z, and I thought it was a particular thing to her, the stare. It's a thing. So we want to hear from you at 877-301-8970. Call or text. We're going to attempt to bridge, because that's what we do here, the generational divide. What's the biggest, most defining traits that you see separating the baby boomers like me, the baby boomers like me, and the Gen Xers from the millennials, from Gen Z, heck, even Alpha, whoever the heck they are. So if you're a Gen Zer, do you get tired hearing all this discourse about those damn kids today? Is there a message that the old folks need to hear?
We want to hear from you because our children don't talk to us.
They don't.
They won't tell us. So all people born between
1997 to 2012.
So mine were 2001, 2003, 2005.
2000.
Right in there, right smack in there.
We want to give a disclaimer here because of journalistic, rules and laws. And this little
the phone thing is a big deal.
Yeah,
they don't like the phone.
A little self-serving. Juliette and I are both going to be leading college classes this fall. We need help connecting to the kids. How's that? 877-301-8970. Call or text.
What do you think? I mean, they're calling and texting, but now I'm afraid. I'm afraid because now they're going to tell us how old we sound.
We're always
talking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?
Yeah, standing on business, man. Gen Z are in the house. Here's an anonymous texter.
Okay, good.
Gen Z are in the house today. I would like to know why people have such a problem with the Gen Z stare. Such a bizarre thing to notice about someone. Working customer service is rough. Have some empathy. All right, let me just say
this.
Good
point.
Right.
Good point. We're going to be very understanding.
We have all worked in
customer
service.
Yes.
Okay, I have worked at Friendly's. I have worked in a bakery. I have been a DJ in a nightclub. We have all had customer service.
That's not really customer service. That's getting paid to party.
No, it is not. Not when some drunk AG comes up and says, "Can you play Madonna?" Thank you very much.
That was good.
So we have all had to interact with people, and we have done it without the stare.
Yeah.
We have pretended to be nice. We have pretended to care. And the thing about the stare is it's unnerving to the customer. Like you come up and go, "Hey," just 2 weeks ago, I was at a Starbucks. I said, "Hey, can I get a little bit more sweetener in this?" And I got this.
So you don't know whether they heard you, whether you're going to get your sweetener. So here, it will shock you to learn that I find silences very uncomfortable. So if you stare at me, I'm filling that space. I can't stare back. And I have to learn to accept the stare as you're doing it right now.
Well, here's my problem.
And I'm just going to filibuster the next 27 minutes.
I have been a salesperson. I've been a sales manager.
Yeah.
The silent close, I'm a big fan of. So I would say, Juliet, here's my last offer. Can you buy this ad in my newspaper for $3,000? And then I just go.
And you can do that?
I absolutely can.
For how long?
I have been quiet for 4 minutes
Come
once
on.
in a negotiation.
Come
I have.
on. 17 seconds for me. I mean, I am the worst. I mean, you want to negotiate with me. Listen, I lay down. I bow before you before we even start.
All right, we have Harmony in Providence. Gen Z.
Gorgeous name.
Gen Z, for the love of God. Why do you all wear hoodies when it's 90 degrees on the middle of the summer and insist on wearing nothing but a T-shirt with your hands in your pockets during the winter? Make it make sense. You know, I wear a hoodie a lot.
You do?
And I have hand warmers.
This is a good look, though. I know. I saw that.
This is my
That's a good
Lois
look.
Lane look, actually.
That's a good
my
look.
Lois Lane look. And I'm also dressed like Aiden over there.
Oh, that's
so there you
right.
go.
It's the best look. I didn't get that. Thanks for the email. You could have called. I'm like Gen Z.
I can't call. I can't call. I'm afraid of calling.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're. I want to say one thing about the phone call.
Go ahead.
I think as a parent, we have to help kids with phone calls. I know this sounds crazy, but so much is being communicated so fast online and text or whatever that it's actually not insane that there's a level of discomfort. So like, can you call the doctor? Like, so at some stage you stop calling the doctor for your teenager and they need to start calling the doctor to set an appointment or whatever it is. And so I do think that they need a little bit of guidance on the phone thing.
Yeah, and the thing I think about the phone thing is funny too, because we've all gone through changes of technology and had to adapt to it, every single generation. But the phone is still here, right? We haven't completely replaced it with texting or emailing or whatever. So, we have interns come into the office at NBC 10 Boston. We set them up with their desk phone and they just kind of look at it what the heck is this? All right, 877-301-8970. Your calls. Let's listen to this anonymous texter.
Oh, good.
A millennial here. I love Gen Z. I don't think they get enough credit. If I could be a Gen Z, I would. You can't just say you are.
Of course you would, because that would not make you a Gen X. And this is me. What are you?
I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1961, so I'm not really a boomer, but I'm not really a Gen Xer.
Yeah,
because
I'm sorry.
I'm kind of in the middle.
I would take the boomer. You know why? Because we're the forgotten. My generation is the forgotten generation. So, like, of course, our anonymous texter is like, I'm just going to not even acknowledge the Gen Xers. We're completely negated from everything. And, it is possible we will not have a Gen X president. We're just going to go from
it says everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're going to go from Obama to Biden to a 35-year-old.
Let's go to
Gavin Newsom if he became president.
Could do it.
I want a Gen X president.
Victoria in Boston. Victoria, welcome to Boston Public Radio. What's on your mind across the generational divide?
Well, hello. I'm actually on a break from work.
Excellent.
Thanks for calling.
Juliet, I think I worked for you a while ago.
Oh, my God.
We found out that we have Gen Z kids called Cecilia, I think.
That's right.
Who were both born on the same day.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes, I always think of that around this time of year. And so I was calling to say that I love Gen Z.
Yeah.
And the key thing I find with my two kids, one was 2001, one was 2004, is that they really don't get hung up on the kind of labels that we do, especially with gender and names and pronouns. They just don't care. It's so refreshing that they don't need an explanation. They actually it doesn't bother them one way or another. They kind of accept their peers for who they are. And I really wish our generation and older could just kind of look at that and be like, well, it doesn't bother them. They understand it. we don't really need that much of an explanation. But I also think they're very engaged in their world. I mean, they have to be.
Right.
And they're awesome. I really, really have a lot of hope for their generation.
Well, that's optimistic, Victoria.
I do too. I mean, I as our kids are adult and the best, they're like the best company possible at this stage, and they're not around enough. That's the problem with being an empty nester. But that idea, Victoria, that you have of them, not feeling tied to institutions or affiliations or the way things have been defined is very liberating, except when you're their parent. Because that is the challenge, right? Is that they're constantly pushing the envelope, and you're like, really? Because I'm your mom. Like those words come out of my mouth. I don't know about you, but I can't follow the emojis either.
I was just going to say, we got a texter right here. The emoji thing and also the changing of what
What's
LOL
the emoji?
means.
Okay, good.
All right, so this person texts, when I text my 21-year-old coworker a question, she always answers with a single inscrutable emoji. A dinosaur, an apple, etc. And I'm supposed to interpret the answer. And I end up just wanting to ask her in person. Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to start doing that. That is hilarious.
Here's my biggest complaint about Gen Z. So you and I are in Gen Z. I'm going to text you to see if we can get together this weekend. So I text you and I say, hey, Juliet. And then you text me back, what's up?
Yeah.
And I go, what are you doing? And then you text me back. This could take hours before we get to, hey, do you want to hang out on Saturday?
Yeah.
I'm like, dudes, just pick up the phone and say, you want to hang out on Saturday? And hang up, but they can't make the call. So it goes on for hours, the texting back and forth.
So I have this separate thing, which is I asked one time we're old. One time we were sitting around and I was watching some show that, of course, I'm watching like on TV, which is already antiquated. And my middle one says, oh, I'm home for the night. And he's like sitting next to me for like, honestly, 90 seconds. And then all of a sudden he has plans. And I'm sort of curious because for most adults, it takes a while to like, when do you want to get together? Oh, September's bad for me. Let's play in October. That's like, unfortunately, adult time. And my son, I said, how did you make plans that quickly? And he says, I just texted out to the group WTW. Do you know what that means?
What do you want to do?
No, what's the word?
What's the word?
What's the word?
Yeah.
WTW. And now I think we should just, I think the oldies like us should just incorporate that and just like send random text out like WTW.
I'll do
with
that.
the dinosaur.
There you go.
With the dinosaur emoji.
We have an 82-year-old texter who says, I'm 82-year-old man and I haven't understood anyone since 1990. So we can get behind that. All right, Matt from Needham. Matt, welcome to BPR. What's on your mind across the generational divide?
Yes, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a son who's a recent college graduate, and I've been helping him or trying to do some networking, and I suggested he reach out to a friend of mine. So he emailed him several times, and there was no response. And I said, well, Chris is a busy guy, so why don't you just call him? And he said, okay. And then before he decided to call him, he looked at me and he said, well, Dad, what happens if he answers the call? And I kind of, talking about stairs, I took a pause and looked at him, and I said, is this like a trick question? Like, what do you mean when you try to get an appointment and go see him? It was kind of frustrating, but I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I will share that my daughter, as everyone knows, and with her permission, she's had a number of chronic illnesses. We've been, she's 25, and over the years transitioning her to be able to talk to her doctors on her own and make the appointments and have to follow up, which is a nightmare for everybody. But the first time she called a doctor's office, they asked her a question. She just hung up on them because it was just, she wasn't prepared for the question, "What's your birthday?" So it's really shocking.
Yeah, no, that's the phone thing. I do think is it's just a skill.
And COVID,
and
we have to acknowledge COVID took a lot out of their sales too. I don't at all want to diminish that. Many kids were isolated, and a lot of these social skills that you would develop and navigate and negotiate through life, they didn't get to do. So let's go to Steve on the road.
Steve,
what's on your mind, Steve?
Hey, so I'm a social worker. I work with military families.
And I saw a training recently. They were talking with an author, and I apologize, I can't remember her name. But she broke down the different generations by their views on authority and official institutions. And I thought with my grandkids are Gen Zs, and I thought it was perfect. She said that boomers tend to come at things from a place of trust. They trust the institutions. They grew up with them. Gen X sees them with a qualified trust. I'm Gen X, and it's, yeah, okay, we'll go along, but we expect you to mess it up. The millennials approach it with a qualified distrust. Like, okay, you got to prove that you're going to be able to do what you do, but we'll go along with it. And then Gen Z comes from a place of complete distrust.
Yeah.
Just they don't view, you really have to prove your loyalty. You really have to prove that you deserve our trust. So I thought that was fantastic. And talking with my daughter, who's a millennial, and my grandkids who are Gen Z, they completely agree as well.
That's great insight. Thanks for
that
sharing
is
that,
helpful.
Steve.
And different generations' response to institutions is the consequence of the older generations, either success or failure vis-a-vis those institutions. But that our kids, their age, have a certain skepticism about institutions working is not a shock, given what, they were born right before or after 9/11. They go through wars.
Crash,
they got the stock market.
Crash,
yeah. And we were talking
COVID.
about teaching. One of the things I have to remind myself is, because I teach in crisis management and homeland security, is, these students do not remember. 9/11 is Pearl Harbor to us. Essentially, it's just this faraway thing, and the world went crazy and whatever. But now we've got these 10 other things, and it's just very helpful to think about. Basically, that these moments that we think are significant are just not that significant because they've had their own significant
it's
things.
history. That's what it is.
And
it's
I'm
history.
ending that with the dinosaur emoji.
We're calling 877-301-8970 for you to call.
I have to read this. I have to read this. Okay, am I allowed to? Can I read this?
You can do whatever you want to
Okay,
do.
so last time I was on, or guest co-hosting, I should say, we did a talker. And mine was to normalize male pedicures. And I got a lot of, skepticism, and we had a lot of guys calling in saying, whatever. So I just want to say that Rich in Danvers did call in or text. And he says, I need to tell Juliet that she has converted me to pedicures. And I have to take a victory lap every once in a while. Thank you.
I
get so,
the gendering
no one
of things,
to me.
The gendering of things drives me crazy. Get your pedicures.
Men normalize pedicures. I'm back to that.
We
We're
don't want to
go
look at your
full circle
toes
this
if
summer.
they're not clean. All right,
okay,
let's go to Maureen.
I feel better already.
Hey, Maureen, talk to us about your co-generational experience.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we hear all the time about how in society right now, I have a 28-year-old. He's looking for a job, and he's still living at home.
Yeah.
And, I hear about how older folks, in their 80s or so are moving in with their kids, for help and financial support for them. Together. And, life used to be this way, where families shared. And I just think, with the force of all the things that are going on politically, socially, financially in the world, that is forcing us to come together.
Yep.
I don't like to think of us as dividing.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I think, we said this in the earlier segment about nature is, one way to learn from other generations and other species is that maybe it's us that's the problem, not them. I have completely come to believe that all the things that we criticize younger generations for are because of the way that my generation or older is in terms of freedom and ability for kids to have their own space and their confidence in not putting things into buckets and stuff. And so I think we have a lot to learn about parenting and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And we also share culture more than our parents did because, we're listening to a lot of the same music. We're watching a lot of the same shows. Things haven't gone, you can access stuff from 30 years ago more easily than you used to when we were their age. So there on the upside, there is much more of a shared culture, pop culture at least, than in prior times. Okay, here's a texter, Sean in the car. As a former high school counselor who worked with Gen Z, I would say the most frustrating was not the Gen Zers, it was the helicopter Gen X parents.
I agree.
Sorry, Juliet, your generation is the
not
worst.
me as a parent. I've been accused of being a satellite parent, which is basically like, hovering at major miles above.
I have been described as the mama bear parent, where I let things go until suddenly they are no longer tolerable.
You have no dial.
Yeah,
you're
you're
you're just an on-off switch. Everything's
fine.
fine.
I trust the system. Let it work. Let it go. And then suddenly it's not working, and I show up. And one teacher said to another, "If Sue is at your door, something has gone terribly wrong."
That's a good.
So there you go.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the way that the parenting, and I believe this, we were talking about in the other segment, some of the studies that are coming out about Gen X, Gen Z, and phones and their sort of personal desire to be off of phones is because parents didn't give them space to do their own thing.
We're taking your calls, 877-301-8970.
If you know how to call.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is a Gen Z issue or just an issue with, just about everyone else these days. What is it with calling and never leaving a message? Am I supposed to call you back, not call back, text you back, expect you to call me back? I'm totally confused. Then again, I'm a boomer, so I'm always confused. That's Deb and Beverly. Yeah, it took me a long time to understand that if I got a call from someone I knew, like Jamie calls me on a regular basis, and if I see that Jamie called, he doesn't leave a message, but I know he wants me to call him back.
That's exactly
so I
right.
call him back. I'm not going to listen to the message if he leaves it. I'm just going to call. My other favorite thing that Jamie does is he texts me and says, "Can you talk right now?" Or have 10 minutes? And I'm like, I text back, "Yes," to see if he's going to call. Like, I'm just being vague. Is he going to call back or not call back?
That's so funny you say that because
Jamie never calls you?
No. But we're going to now bash Jamie for about half a minute. But the text, he'll say like, "Can you talk?" And I'll be like, "Yes." And he's like, "Not a hurry." I'm like, "Okay." I'll be like, "Let me step outside," and then he's like, "Not a hurry." I was like, "But you just asked if we should talk."
So if one of my boomer friends calls and doesn't leave a message, I know it's a butt dial. That's the other thing I know.
Cohen, who produces the GBH web series Politics, writes, and I agree with this, Gen Z is going to save us all. GBH News has been running a Gen Z politics video series for over a year, and the participants are smart, engaged, and genuinely care about big issues locally and nationally. They are total superstars and make me sleep better at night.
Right, but can they make a call?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's with the dinosaur
emojis? That's what we want.
I agree
We're happy
with
they're
this.
saving democracy, but we want to know what the emojis mean.
I'm excited to see how this all turns out if I live to tell about it.
All right, here's another one. Ask a Gen Z what the bottom of the hour is. I had to explain to my coworkers that it relates to an analog clock after they said, "Sure, let's talk at 1." They said, "Oh, that's what that means." Yes, but this is sometimes just the evolution of technology that you talk about. The printing press as a metaphor. No one uses the printing press anymore, but it is funny when you're using slogans or phrases that you want to express something, and or read the clock. That's another fun thing. Have you met anyone who's 18 that can't tell time on an analog clock?
But watches are back though.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like there's like if you wait long enough, your watches are back, the bell bottoms are back, your jeans from 1980 if they still fit are back. So we just wait around long enough and we're gonna be good. But
I'm going to share with you what's before the Gen Zers. We get The Alphas. I was with some Alpha.
Who are the Alphas?
How old are they now? Like 30? No, millennials. So I was with some millennials who were complaining about the Gen Zers being entitled, which absolutely cracked me up. Like, they were sitting around saying, oh my God, they are so entitled. They have no idea. I'm like, dudes, this was you 10 years ago. Like, you were absolutely, the entitlement that every generation brings with them is not unique to each generation. Do you think?
I think that's exactly right.
Yes.
And I would be I would say I have almost nothing to complain about Gen Z, except my 3 kids are Gen Z, so there's like a kid-mom dynamic, including the stare. Stop it! Stop it! I can't stand silence. I have to just keep talking to fill the silence. So anyway, who's here?
Jared Bowen's here because the Culture Show is up next.
Jared is here.
What's up? To see you both.
Did you hear that my Make Male Pedicures initiative has at least 1 subscriber?
Oh, that's
from the last time I was here. That's all. I'm done.
You're demanding male pedicures.
I'm not demanding. I just want to normalize them.
If you just put your toes out, make sure they look good.
Yeah,
that's
the way I say. I'm there.
I'm
there. I'm just saying it's not a movement, but I've got one person who listened to me
and it
last time,
gender.
and he's a convert.
Okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't be gender.
Well, you're welcome that I signed up for it on your behalf.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, what's on the Culture Show?
So on the Culture Show today, we're going to be talking about vintage clothing making a comeback in the age of the Gilded Age. Look at you in your vest, actually.
I know,
it's
very gilded.
In my pocket, I've got my little monocle in here, and I'm going to put that in my little top hat.
So you'll have to stick around for the Culture Show because you are a perfect example. Comedies are making a comeback. For a long time, Hollywood has moved to family films and basically everything in the Marvel and DC franchise, but they're realizing after The Naked Gun and Freakier Friday, there is money to be found in comedies again. And then, of course, we will be talking about the White House administration's latest attack on the Smithsonian museums, which is a whole list of art they find objectionable now.
Is slavery good or bad?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because it's been around forever, so therefore it's neutral, right? Is that the Smithsonian, the poor Smithsonian standpoint?
Slavery is bad. Talking about it, even badder, according to the administration.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The Smithsonian, is its own entity. It's supposed to be independent. I've been wondering what they're actually going to do. Congress, of course, controls their funds, and we can't be counting on Congress for stuff. But I'm interested if this is another one of those. Trump makes you trying to take the bait when the Smithsonian can stand up, but then we see what happened at the Kennedy Center, which also had some independence.
Right, as we've already been talking about, the Smithsonian is trying to work constructively, in their own words, with the administration, so they're definitely feeling the pressure, regardless of who is orchestrating it all in their Board of Regents.
Yeah, I have to say, anyone who's been to Smithsonian, they are very hopeful pro-America. There's nothing. Even the African American Museum it's an amazing experience. Hopeful about America and its capacity to change. That's my cue. Thanks for listening to another edition of BPR, and thanks to everyone who came down to see the show at the Boston Public Library. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tune in Monday. Sue will be back, and Marjorie will talk with the UN's Olga Cherevko in Gaza, plus NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Cassie, food policy analyst Corby Comer, and Michael Curry from the NAACP and Mass League of Community Health Centers. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, and Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker, who I understand is on vacation next week. Our executive producer, don't reply to his texts, is Jamie Bologna. I don't even know if I pronounced it outside. Did I do out loud? Is that okay? Good. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Gear, Patrick. I should have asked how to pronounce everyone. Patrick Lally, Angelica Morero, and Juan Jose Cadena. I apologize. Thanks to our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe, who fed us all morning. And across the street at the Lenox Hotel, who parked our cars. Stay tuned to the Culture Show's Week in Review, which starts immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. And live from the BPL studio, I am Juliette Kayyem.
And I am Sue O'Connell. Hope you have a great weekend. Tune in on Monday.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Acera School in Winchester, committed to cultivating curiosity for grades K through 9. From woodworking to fine arts, engineering, and physics, Acera's teachers are dedicated to unlocking each student's potential. More at aceraschool.org. Cheer on the pride, sportsmanship, and camaraderie in the 2025 Challenger Division of the Little League World Series, featuring Woburn, Massachusetts, tomorrow morning at 10:30 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, this could be the soundtrack for the next New York Fashion Week. That's because everything old is new again, with sartorial styles skewing historic thanks to the influence of shows like The Gilded Age and Downton Abbey.
How did you get on with your dressmaker? Find anything?
I did. And she says she can have it done by Friday.
Speaking of vintage, the Sex and the City sequel is over. And just like that, is leaving fans feeling frustrated, alienated, and alone. Kind of like Carrie Bradshaw in the series finale.
I may be alone for the rest of my life. What? No! There will be a new man in your life. Yesterday, I had lunch with a doll.
But comedies are having a comeback. Recently relegated to streaming platforms, blockbuster hits including Freakier Friday and the Naked Gun reboot have studios laughing all the way to the bank.
Drebin, Detective Frank Drebin, says you served 20 years for man's laughter. You mean manslaughter? Must have been quite the joke.
Then it's a look at President Trump's revisionist history. In 2019, he acknowledged our nation's role in slavery.
The first enslaved Africans in the English colonies arrived in Virginia. It was the beginning of a barbaric trade in human lives.
Now, in his escalated attacks on the Smithsonian museums, he says there's too much focus on how bad slavery was.
We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner.
And Cambridge Dictionary has more than 6,000 new words. Among them is skibbity, which comes from the viral YouTube series in which a man's singing head pops out of a toilet.
What the heck is going on
Another entry is broligarchy. Combining oligarchy and broism, it describes a small group of powerful, wealthy men often associated with the tech industry.
Okay. 4 presidents of tech, here on Mount Techmore. The State of the Nation Financial Evaluation Brewsters. Get yo net worth on! Yeah!
We expand our vocabulary and more right now on our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Heard police work is dangerous.
It is, that's why I carry a big gun.
Aren't you afraid it might go off accidentally?
I used to have that problem.
And what did you do about it?
I just think about baseball.
Welcome to The Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III.
We're going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, starting with old-fashioned fashion. There's a growing trend of people wearing vintage clothing, partly influenced by period dramas such as The Gilded Age and Downton Abbey, and partly influenced by a rebellion against fast fashion. So part of this is inspired by this auction that is coming up of Downton Abbey clothing, but it's made people realize that in addition to people who just want to buy the clothing and buy the props from the original film, that there's a huge part of society that is dressing vintagely and appreciating the old styles, the old clothing, what it takes to put outfits together, and it is definitely a rejection of fast fashion, of course, clothes that you can buy, wear for maybe a season or even less than that, and then you're on to the next thing.
I think what's important to note here is that young people are all into it.
Yeah.
We've seen a little bit of that vintage interest over time. The antique watches, the vests, all of that kind of stuff for men. We're talking about specifically. But now young people are, all in. They're bringing back vinyl, as you know, and they're bringing back everything else.
And cassettes, as I was just hearing right before the show started.
And so this is part of it. What I think is interesting is that this is separate and apart from those big events known as cosplay, where there are specific conventions where people go for, let's say the Gilded Age or Downton Abbey. When Downton Abbey was at its prime, there were many costume events at GBH.
Oh, yeah. And also, around here, one of the prominent ones, and this was inspired by something that's been going on for years in New York, but they have a Jazz Age lawn party up in Ipswich every summer, and people, it is like, I've been to that numerous times, and you go to that, and it's incredible, the sort of vintage fashion, not just clothes, but people come in old cars and with like the picnicking stuff and the tent. It is amazing. Yeah. But also, listen, I'm somebody who I like vintage fashion sort of writ large generally. I like the idea that you look back through different times and different periods. But the thing is also in these different periods, even that we think of as vintage for us, they were drawing inspiration often from other generations as well. So, I was just kind of like thinking about this, but it's sort of like the teddy boy fashion, which was like the greasers of the 50s in England, right? They were drawing from the Edwardian era. And if you look at late 1960s, they're drawing on Renaissance fashion, both in the colors and the patterns and the shapes.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because the New York Times was pointing out that, according to this one writer, the last great flourish of men's fashion was the Regency period, where you had silks and colors and things of that nature. And if you look at the red carpet today, men have returned to that. So I'll leave women aside, because women have always had color and always have seen fashion evolving. Men kind of just stayed conservative for a really long time for the most part. But now we see men in interviews, men on the red carpet wearing pink suits and all manner of pastel colors, and it is, I think, a tie back. Something has cracked open now, so even if it's not the strict clothing of the Gilded Age or Downton Abbey, they're definitely borrowing from that. I think in the same way people borrowed from Mad Men when that came out. That was another great example of pop culture inspiring this. And I think that even in our homes, you see the wallpaper is coming back, and prints on fabrics and furniture is coming back, so we're all... We thought we were looking back only to maybe the 70s or 80s, but now it's the 1870s or 80s.
and we should note that the Met Gala was all about dandyism, and
that's right.
So, all of that came back with a flourish when that big event happened, and people are still wearing it.
Yeah, listen, again, vintage fashion is cycles through with us, but I will always remember the advice that my mom had, which is she always said, if you were old enough to wear it the first time around, you can't wear it the second time around. So for folks out there looking at vintage fashion, keep that in mind.
Does that go for my onesie when I was a toddler too?
Well, Jared, you've got to do you.
Well, actor Jack Loudon is also in on the vintage trend, or so we thought. It turns out recently published photos of him looking jaunty in a waistcoat, neckcloth, and breeches were taken on the set of the new Pride and Prejudice Netflix series filming right now. So if you're watching here at the library, you can look up at the monitor, or if you're streaming on our GBH News YouTube channel, you'll see these surreptitiously taken photos of Jack Loudon as Mr. Darcy. This one's all for you, Callie.
Yes,
we know how excited you are about this upcoming series.
And I'm holding my breath that he does the job he's supposed to do.
So what are you hoping for, and what are you concerned about?
It's going to have to be as good as some of the past guys, because they just really brought it. And I just don't know him in that role.
In that way, yeah.
But everybody says he's such a good actor that it should be fabulous.
I think he's great. So Mr. Darcy is the one who just is brooding the whole time, right?
He's brooding the whole time, and then at one point he deigns to tell Lizzie that, oh my God, he thinks he loves her even though she has a horrible family.
Yes.
And she sets him off. Get away from me, you pig. And then he really realizes he's messed up. Then he messes up a few other relationships, and then he has to really come back to himself and, do some repenting and beg for her heart.
So Colin Firth was Darcy in one of the TV series ones, right? And
he was good.
He was good.
Yeah, he
so
was
that's
good.
He's
Matthew
good.
McFadden.
Matthew McFadden, was he good?
Listen, Matthew McFadden coming through the Glen to come back to talk to Lizzie? Are you kidding me? Come on now.
You're sweating there, Callie. I need to get you a mini fan.
Yeah, so Callie has been doubting me because I think that Jack Loudon is going to be phenomenal.
Okay.
And you were doubting me. You're bringing a little bit of haterade, I have to say. But if you watch him in Slow Horses, you can see the capability this actor has. He has to be both menacing and dear and a little dummy at times.
Yeah.
And so I think that he is a brilliant choice. And also, he's married to one of the other great actors of that generation, Saoirse Ronan.
Oh.
So
That is a
yeah,
power
look,
couple.
everybody's surprised here.
Yes.
Yeah, this family brings acting chops. So
Well, I hope she runs some lines with him. Get it together there, Jack.
I can't wait till it comes out and we get your review, Callie.
if you can wait, that is.
Yeah.
Well, while Jack Loudon is performing as a Regency-era male, the 2025 performative male is man-spreading across the internet. The performative male is everywhere, from online to real life, where performative male contests are popping up around the globe. So what is a performative male? Here's the Cliff Notes version. The performative male would never be seen reading Cliff Notes. Instead, he'd be toting a clearly visible work of feminist literature. He'd be sipping a matcha latte and sporting a tote bag complete with a labubu. So I'm not sure I completely understand what's happening here, but there are a whole group of people thinking that there are a whole group of men who, in order to more endear themselves, I presume that we're talking about straight men, in order to more endear themselves to women, are performing these feminist ideals and tendencies to be more compatible.
Yeah, the only thing that messes up the whole look is if you open your mouth and you know nothing about all the stuff you're toting around.
Which is, I think, the thing that gets you categorized then as a performative male, because it's clear that you are putting on a performance.
Exactly. But what I think is interesting is that so much as this trend is, and we can't really tell right now, is growing. It's a response to the other trend about the toxic masculinity being praised as that's what real men are.
Right.
You tell that woman what her place is. You're strong. You don't have there are no tears here. There's no vulnerability. You're just the guy.
You're a guy. You like sports.
Yeah, exactly.
And you button your shirt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And none of this reading any of this literature. Are you kidding?
No.
So,
that's not manly.
So that's fascinating to me that this is a kind of response to that, and so we'll see.
Well, it's a response to that, except for then there's the notion that there is some subsect of this who are like, they kind of get that this is a thing, and then they're kind of being ironic by doing the thing, even though they might be the toxic masculine guy, which is to say we have left the age of irony and we are in the age of meta irony.
Yes.
Like, we are so far down the rabbit hole that I think it's really difficult to kind of get your brain around. I keep finding myself thinking, I am just glad I am not a teenager or in my early 20s right now, because I feel like it would be really difficult. I think like that,
Find yourself.
I mean, the thing is like, I would like if I give this the most generous reading I can, I suppose, in this world of performative males, they're probably not a monolith. There are some who are probably like, I'm totally going to get this girl by doing this, and that person should be like given the business.
Yeah.
But there are also probably some who are just trying to figure out how to be in the world.
Yep.
And like right now, it's just, we all have to go through that process where you try some different things on as you figure out who you are. And I think some people are probably just trying to figure it out.
All right, so here's my take on this.
Yes.
Isn't everything performative to a degree?
This is a great point.
Don't
too.
we all conjure personalities for who we want to be, who we are with our families, who we are if we want to date someone, who we are in front of our boss. And then we're also in this midst of and not putting people into a box. And what is this doing? This is putting men in a box who are trying to do something different, and maybe this is actually who they are. And so they're making this intent to do this. My other concern here is that Gloria Steinem has advocated for men to do just this. I had a long conversation with her at the Boston Speaker Series, and one of her most salient points, I thought, coming out of this was her notion that if men had stayed home and more men were taking care of children, they would be different men and they would be more in touch with their emotions. And so suddenly these men are being blasted. I guess it's presuming that they're not sincere in their intent, but how do we know that? So I don't understand a lot of this, and it seems to be contrary to everything that a lot of people have been advocating for in our society, that to then turn around and create these labels and then make men even more suspicious.
Well, first thing I will say is Gloria Steinem is a first-wave feminist, for those who are listening who don't know who that is. And that's important to say. And secondly, I think there may be something to what you've said, but I think both you and Edgar are on the sort of same space as just people trying to figure out who they are and how to present themselves. And what's the RuPaul saying that somebody mentioned?
We're all born naked, everything else is drag. And that's at the point you're making, which is everything to a certain extent, is performative. I mean, everything's a uniform or a costume. There is no, the idea that, a typical man wears this and a typical woman wears that, even in its most basic, we've decided that. Like, there's nothing, that's a decision we've made, and then we all follow suit.
That's right. And when I first started learning about this, I was thinking this harkens back to the metrosexual of, I guess it was the 2000s, because there was a notion that because men suddenly took an interest in how they were dressing and cared about their hair, and maybe Julia Kayam was just talking about pedicures, maybe if they were getting manicures and pedicures, this was a whole new breed of man. It was the metrosexual. And I just think it's fascinating how men are not a monolith, and yet they're trying to make them so, I think. And if you're not part of the monolith, then you're a different creature.
That's correct.
But I think the other thing this harkens back to is the poser of the 1990s. And this shares some DNA with that, because I think the other thing about this is it is about at least either real or perceived authenticity, right? The issue with the performative male is that he doesn't really believe what he is sort of making it look like he believes. So there is, this is a generation that is, like it was for the Gen Xers in the 90s, really putting a premium on quote-unquote authenticity, whatever that is, which I would argue, if you think about it long enough, is also somewhat performative. But
it just reminds me of the old days when the guys would borrow somebody's baby and walk around so as to attract women. Oh, look at the guy, he's with the baby.
Now they just realize it's performative. Now they realize it's easier to just borrow your neighbor's yellow lab. That does the trick too, and you don't have to feed it as much.
Just saying.
Well, moving forward in pop culture, and just like that, the sequel to Sex and the City is over. The series never fully satisfied Sex and the City fans or gained the cultural relevance of its predecessor. The series finale has been panned by critics and fans alike for being gloomy, cringy, and beyond redemption. Let's weigh in on that with the series itself. This is from the final monologue given by Sarah Jessica Parker as Carrie Bradshaw in the series finale of Just Like That.
The woman realized she was not alone. She was on her own.
Only one like you.
So, okay, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I never saw Sex and the City, but
like a single episode.
I never saw a single episode.
Are you really?
I knew who they were. I knew about it.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't know how I missed it. I think there was a long period where I just didn't have.
Everywhere.
You didn't have HBO at the time.
I didn't have HBO.
Oh, wow.
And I just didn't. It wasn't. I didn't actively try to not watch it. I just never saw it.
Okay.
So just recently, not even knowing that we were going to be doing this, I started watching And Just Like That because because I was watching The Gilded Age. I thought Cynthia Nixon was really good. I wanted to see more of her in something else, so I happened on this. I find the show really interesting, actually, because it's a group of women of a certain age who are grappling with issues that people in their 50s grapple with in terms of being middle-aged and what the future holds and what you've done with your life to date. And I find it pretty interesting. I'm only a few episodes in, but now I realize...
First season or last season?
So I'm watching the first season of this new revival. And so for that, I think it's kind of interesting. It's not a great show, but it's interesting. So this is kind of bizarre to me to see the hate that people are bringing to it, but I guess it's because these characters have no link to the original one.
Well, they have link in name and circumstance, and that's about it. The problem was that this really, it was about the mature woman aging and doing all the things that mature women would be doing and being concerned about, and they completely disconnected the characters from the Sex and the City ones. At the end, they did 2 films, and at the end of the series itself, you saw them beginning to grapple with, for example, aging parents and other kinds of issues that, it would have been natural to continue. Instead, they sort of abruptly disconnected them from the people they were in that first series, and that's what fans were objecting to. It's okay if you want to shape them or they have some revelation or even a mid-year crisis, but to make them wholly
do they even attempt to attempt to smooth it over in your estimation?
They try, but it's so horrible. You can't believe it because the writing and the acting was so good in the series, and even less so in the films, but still even that point. So some of these storylines that the criticism is about, absolutely correct. Goes here, goes there, goes nowhere. I've not seen the last season because they don't drop them all at once, and I refuse to watch a series on streaming unless it's dropped all at once. So I have to wait until it's over. But the kind of complaints I've had with my friends who were just in love with Sex and the City and what it did in the writing and the acting, they're disappointed.
Part of that therein lies the challenge. Like, I find what you were saying, Jared, about your experience to be particularly interesting because, the thing that's interesting about a sequel or a reboot of any kind is it is at odds with itself. From a financial standpoint, it almost always makes sense. You have a built-in audience. If it's something that has maybe grown in popularity since it was last on the air, it's kind of a slam dunk from a business perspective to go back to that, to that series or that movie. But if it is that kind of thing, by nature, you're going to have people who have a lot of feelings about it, who have grown with these characters, and it's almost impossible to not disappoint some segment of them. So from an audience perspective, and sometimes even from a story perspective, it's very difficult to pull it off well.
But see, when we saw them do it in the movies, this is what gets on all of our nerves. Are you kidding me? And these are the same people like Michael Patrick King who are in charge of the writing and the directing. There is no excuse for allowing these and they brought in some great other actors into the mix.
But isn't this also suggesting that they're supposed to be the same people they were in their 20s?
No. But what we're saying is people don't just wholly change. They are shaped differently. They are influenced by the context, all of that. We want to see that. But they don't wholly change. The Cynthia Nixon character in And Just Like That is crazily not her.
Oh, that's
I mean, it is really, we're like, what are we talking about? This one was strong. She was obnoxious many times. And you've made her this kind of wimpy running behind this horrible character first season. I mean, it was a lost opportunity in my opinion.
All right. Well,
there you go.
I don't know that it makes me want to go back. Maybe I'll be the one person on the planet that doesn't like Sex and the City.
I think you should never watch. Just be like, I'm a huge fan of And Just Like That. And
go back and look at the original.
A many years-long prologue to the show that I just watched.
Well, there you go.
Well, Carrie Bradshaw might have not had a successful comeback, but movie comedies in general might be having one. For the last few years, most comedic films have gone straight to streaming platforms, bypassing the big screen. But this summer's box office success of The Naked Gun, Reboot, and Freakier Friday has tickled Hollywood's funny business bone. I love this, first of all, because I loved when we have been through these periods of great comedies that have come out, and especially the whole Hangover, Bridesmaids era. Then before that, you had the Naked Gun era when there was a whole host of spoofs that came out about all the movies. And
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Robin Hood Men in Tights. Hot Shots.
Yes.
Off of
Hot
what
Shots
was it?
Part 2.
Top Gun or something.
Top Gun, yeah.
But we have seen Hollywood play it safe, as we talk about often on the show, and so it's all about either the family bank built in because it's an animated film for families, how they'll go to the theater in droves, or it's the Marvel or DC universe that we see iteration 1920 of. And so suddenly, because Naked Gun and Freakier Friday have done well, there's this interest, and because Adam Sandler's show or film Happy Gilmore did really, really, really well on Netflix, they're realizing...
It was also quite good. I was very surprised at how good that sequel was, just for the record.
Yeah, they're thinking that this is the time to put comedies back in the theater.
Well, I love comedies, and what I find interesting is that during COVID, many of them were streamed. That was the focus of stream because people were trying to, please just get me away from some of the heaviness that I'm living with. And you would think there would have been more of them, given how heavy everything has been in the last few years. So I'm actually at the movies, so I'm actually surprised by that. I do note that everything that we've mentioned thus far is either a reboot or a sequel. So we're talking Happy Gilmore or The Naked Gun or Freakier Friday. So you begin, again, to your point, Edgar, with a built-in audience. You cannot, in order for it to be successful, I've not seen the new ones, but I'm going to assume you can't stray from the essence of the characters in order to make this work. What I also find fascinating at this moment is because as some of the theater people are realizing that people would like to have comedies, some people are lying about being a comedy. I give you The Materialist. The Materialist is described as a rom-com. It is not a rom-com. It is not a romantic comedy. It is not funny. And I'm like, why lie? Don't lie. Well, they're lying because they're trying to appeal to us on the comedic level. I think it's fascinating.
So on your point about the reboot thing, I think what I'm looking at is the next couple things coming out from Searchlight Pictures is The Roses, which is another remake, a remake of the War of the Roses comedy, and then Splitsville. Now, Splitsville's Dakota Johnson. It's people who are in polyamorous relationships. That is an original piece. So I'm going to be watching to see what that does to see how big this trend is. Now, I have another theory on this. I don't think it's just, first of all, I think people are wanting some comedies right now. But let's look at the running time of these movies. Naked Gun, 85 minutes. Freaky Friday, 111 minutes. The Roses coming out, 105 minutes. Everything under 2 hours. Now, I think what has happened, in part, is there's been an assumption made by the folks in the movie industry that because ticket prices have gone up, screens have gotten bigger, and everything is costing more, in order to give people the perceived value for coming out to the theater, they have to make these movies 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I think they're onto something with short movies, and I'm really interested to see what will happen, because I think the perceived value for a person is not in the amount of time they spend in the theater. It's just, was it a good experience or not?
Was it a good story?
Well, and cynical me will also say that I think comedies maybe outprice themselves, because if you think about the Jim Carreys and the Ben Stillers and other people who had really successful comedies. Remember when Jim Carrey became, what was it, the first $20 million man? It was with the cable guy. And because it produced such stars, they were having to pay these actors so much money. And so the budgets, inexplicably, well, we have just explained it actually, for comedies became really, really expensive. So now if you have a whole new crop of actors and you're trying to generate and bring up a whole new breed, you're not paying those salaries necessarily. So again, it's cost effective for the movie studios to greenlight these pictures.
I'm really interested in the original one, so I'll be interested in Splitsville, because then we'll really get a sense of whether this is a trend or not. As far as I'm concerned, there can never be a time when there are not comedies, because we just need to laugh. We just need a release.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it is, in this case, it's a question of whether or not people are going to go to the theaters for them. And I think at least for a period of time, the bet was no, and it looks like that might be shifting. And I think that is potentially good for all of us, including theater operators and the movie business as a whole.
Before we leave that, they were saying, because horror movies have been the other big, in addition to the family films and the big blockbusters, it's horror films, because they have argued that people want to be together for the jump scares. But you need to be together to laugh, too. A movie's a lot less funny if you're the only person in the theater.
Yeah, exactly.
It is very fun to be laughing with an audience.
It is.
In a theater. It's very fun.
It is.
Well, coming up, why was Spike Lee's Colin Kaepernick docuseries with ESPN spiked? That and more is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, the Trump administration is changing benefit rules for immigrants and weighing anti-Americanism in the process. Plus, on this week's Joy Beat, celebrating 2 members of a Brookline nonprofit that set out to diversify all 21 of the city's little free libraries. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of Cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org. And Bryant University, where learning goes beyond the classroom. With 4 years of real-world projects and global experiences, Bryant is committed to providing students with exceptional outcomes and skills to succeed on day one. Bryant.edu.
Sponsoring GBH 89.7 can benefit your business and helps keep the local news that matters to you on the air. To learn more about multi-platform packages, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
For the stories that take you deeper and the conversations that give you full context, subscribe to the GBH News YouTube channel. Just search for GBH News. GBH News, what matters to you.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Horwick III. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes President Trump's ongoing attacks of the Smithsonian museums. Last week, he requested an internal review of 8 of its museums with the aim of bringing the organization in line with his ideals of quote-unquote Americanism. This week, he took to social media to escalate his criticism, writing, quote, everything discussed, I'm adding here, at the Smithsonian, is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was. When NPR asked the White House for clarification, an official responded with a statement reading, quote, President Trump will explore all options and avenues to get the woke out of the Smithsonian and hold them accountable. Well, they tried to do that starting today when we saw a list that has been issued by the White House where attorneys at the behest of the president have combed through the museums and identified a number of things that they find objectionable. Things like a stop-motion depiction of Anthony Fauci. Things like quotes from anti-racist Ibram X. Kendi. Things like Amy Sherald's depiction of the Statue of Liberty as a trans figure who, instead of holding a torch, is holding a bouquet of flowers. So this is where the administration is going now. They have been talking about it. They have been identifying their notions of what art is, what American history is, how it should be presented. And now they are identifying what they find objectionable. And I would assume, I shouldn't assume, but I could anticipate that the next action is that these things are carted out of the Smithsonian.
Oh, I would assume so as well. A few months ago, there was a panic among a lot of folks online and elsewhere because there was a rumor, and it was a rumor at the time, I don't know if it will remain a rumor, that the lunch counter, which there was a civil rights movement in Greensboro, and the actual lunch counter is in the Museum of African American History and Culture, part of the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., had been removed. And people just freaked out because it's an iconic image and symbolic of an event that happened. That on the other side of it, there was desegregation, but this was the event that led to it. And this was the actual, piece of history. And so I, now assume those kinds of pieces will be moved. And it's very scary to me. And I'm just reminded, people are going to say, this sounds really, don't get hysterical about it. Was the mastermind of the propaganda during the Nazi time. He started very small. Yeah. It wasn't all we ever hear about as the end of it when he was leading all this massive propaganda campaigns. But the beginning of them were very small, and the kind of things that people said, well, it's not great, but, can we live with it? And that just worries me that more people are going to see this as, it's not great, but we still have some exhibits. Can we live with it? No, this is literally the erasing of history.
Yeah. And when it comes to history in particular, I think about, I did a story a few years back about sundown towns in Massachusetts, of which there were a number, right? And sundown towns are basically places where either explicitly or implicitly it was not okay for people of color to be in this town after dark, right? This is where this sort of term comes from. And one of the things that people who have studied this and other things like it have talked about is there's a very time-honored way to move past these kinds of things, these bad things that have happened in our past. It is, one, acknowledge that it happened. 2, apologize. Say it shouldn't have happened that way. And then 3, promote education and awareness about this thing happened, we don't do it anymore, and here's why, right? And this is going all the way to that first one and saying we're not only do we not want to move past it, we're not even going to acknowledge that it happened. That is deeply dangerous. And I think about, President Trump has gotten very far in his life, right? He has succeeded on many measures, and I think he's done that in part when you look at him as a person who his ethos has been never admit you're wrong, just move past it, ignore it. And that, while it can lead to one person sometimes, I think, having success, leaves a lot of damage in its wake. And what I see here is somebody who, even at your most generous, if you look at what he's asking, he's saying, well, maybe he feels like slavery's in the past and we shouldn't be talking about it all the time. At your most generous, you kind of go, maybe he just wants to get past it. But the thing is you can't get past it if you don't acknowledge that it happened.
Well, we know that it's more than that. We know they want it erased. We know that they're identifying what they don't want in the museum. And in the case of the Amy Sherrill portrait of the Statue of Liberty, that won't go into the museum. It's actually of her call, of her volition, because she saw the writing on the wall. She didn't like her interaction with the Smithsonian and what they wanted to do with that painting or not do with that painting. And so she's not putting her exhibit there. I spoke yesterday with Joy Behar, actually, because she has a show coming to Boston for the Huntington Theater Company. But I took the opportunity to ask her about what it is like to go up against the president. Joy Behar is a co-host of The View. She had a lot of scrutiny last month when she compared President Trump to Barack Obama and his insecurities in light of what we saw exhibited by the Obama presidency. So I asked her about, again, what it means that we're seeing these attacks on American cultural institutions.
They're so touchy. It's like, he's allowed to say whatever he wants, call people names from morning till night. All I said was he was jealous of Obama and he got all bent out of shape. The thing about the Republican Party seems to always be about business. Well, let me tell you something. If you don't have art, if you don't have theater, if you don't have movies, if you don't have comedy, businesses will go out of business, because that's why people eat at your restaurant. That's why people buy your stuff, because they're going to the theater.
So speaking of theater, we talked more about her show. We also talked more about the what's come her way, and our full conversation with Joy Behar will air on September 4th. But this is pervasive.
Yeah.
This is happening at the Kennedy Center. It's happening in museums. He rejoiced over the firing of Colbert, so he's worked his way into popular culture. And this isn't just he either. We know that this is many figures within the White House who have identified the areas of culture they want to attack and the areas of culture they want to erase.
We should note that part of the list of exhibits that he particularly is targeting came from the Federalist Society. So he's borrowing some of the work that organization did to, for them, identify what they believe is, quote, unquote, anti-American or critical of America. And I think, you have to say that when we're talking about particularly the artist pieces, critique is a part of what artists do to spark conversation and public debate.
To that point, one of the things that is objected to on this list that troubles me most is this is from the list. The Museum of American Art uses American sculpture, and they point to a particular instance, quote, to invite dialogue and reflection on notions of power and identity. What could possibly be objectionable about that?
Well, I'll say the other one that really troubled me is they objected to an image of I believe it's a figure from Mexico looking over an open wall at fireworks happening in the United States, which is akin to an editorial cartoon you will see, have seen in any newspaper across the country. So again, as I say every week, if we think it's going to end with the Smithsonian just because the federal government has some level, not even all control, because the Smithsonian does not fall under the purview of the executive branch, it is not going to end there, as we see them work their way into television and other realms as well. Well, now on to another instance of a story not being told. Spike Lee's Colin Kaepernick docuseries for ESPN has been shelved. The news was made public this week while Lee was promoting his latest film, but he said that the deal actually fell apart last year, and he has no intention of shopping it around.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it would go to a festivals or something and we could see it.
Or a streaming service of some sort.
Yeah, or something. So we have to know who has the rights. I guess Spike has some, and maybe ESPN has some. I don't know. I just want to first make the point that most people know Spike Lee's work from a feature film perspective, but he's actually done quite a number of documentaries for which he has been also honored. One of the most powerful is called Four Little Girls. It's about those little girls that were blown up in Birmingham. And he was part of the HBO series about Katrina. So just put that on the table. So he is very capable of doing a very thoughtful
great documentary. He's also an enormous sports fan. So, literally you could not pick a more perfect person for a project docuseries about the Colin Kaepernick thing than Spike Lee. It's a real shame that this has fallen apart. The part that is unclear to me is just what stage it's at, how finished it is, especially since he said, well, the deal fell apart a year ago. I think, listen, you hope what transpired with Colin Kaepernick in the NFL, frankly, is still an unfolding story. The reverberations from that, we're still in the midst of.
For people who don't remember, he's the guy that took a knee, and then that followed some other activity by other football players as well. Go ahead.
And once he really, truly took his stand, he never played again. And,
right.
So that's still unfolding. You hope that there will continue to be docuseries, books, from now into the future on this, because we're still grappling with what happened.
I just want to add that ESPN has aired some tough documentaries, warts and all documentaries. Yeah. So this is more confusing to me. The O.J. Made in America, which became an Academy Award winner, was very powerful, 7.5 hours of television in a very serious context about race and power in the country. That aired, so you wonder what's going on here.
We may never know in this case. Yeah. Well, coming up, a book and... Oops. We're listening to Morgan Wallen's I'm the Problem. This is off the country music superstar's latest album, which he announced this week will not be submitted for Grammy consideration. No reason given. But this is an artist who, by the way, he's here for 2 nights at Gillette Stadium this weekend, who has faced a lot of public backlash for everything from criminal offenses. He pled guilty to an offense recently, skirted others, has been charged with racism for derogatory and comments that he has made, but seems to want to play outside the system. Won Entertainer of the Year at the CMAs, didn't show up to collect it. Yep. So people are trying to figure out why he doesn't want to play, but he really doesn't have to.
I thought that the lyrics of I Guess I'm the Problem are very interesting in this moment that he decided he didn't want to submit his thing, which is about, essentially says, I must be the problem because but you're still hanging around with me, so what's your problem?
Yeah.
It looks like you're the reason. Said more lyrically than that, of course, or sung more lyrically than that. I don't get him at all, and I really have had no interest since the racial slur in 2021.
Yeah.
I must say, I do acknowledge that, of course, he's drawn a lot of fans. So I don't know what his problem is, actually.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Callie. There seems to be a sort of strain of passive aggressiveness in the lyrics on the problem that, if you're gonna speculate, it looks like could be what's going on here. He's not been nominated for a Grammy by his own right before. He's been nominated for duets with other people where they've put it forward. 36 of the 37 tracks on his current album have been on the Billboard Hot 100. He's obviously a huge star. Whatever. He doesn't have to submit for the Grammys if he feels like he's been wronged, or, I don't know, maybe he's busy doing something else that day when they had to submit. I don't think it really matters.
Maybe the studio is wondering. Maybe he'll say something this weekend when he's right here. Well, coming up, a bookend in the United States. Recreational reading has fallen by 40%. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
If you're a serious connoisseur of bottled water, you probably know which brands pair well with certain foods like steak.
It's got a high sodium content, big bubbles. It really just brings that saltiness out of your meal.
Enter the world of water sommeliers. This is not a joke. We'll have that story and the latest news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Subaru of New England, the all-wheel drive 2025 Subaru Crosstrek, is committed to keeping your loved ones safe on adventures this summer. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And M. Steinert & Sons Pianos, the region's authorized Steinway dealer, presents the return of the Symphony Hall Piano Event, Friday, September 5th through Sunday the 7th at Symphony Hall, msteinert.com.
From your neighborhood to your newsfeed, GBH News is your trusted source for the news that matters to you. Find us wherever you are at GBH News and always at GBH 89.7. GBH News, what matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Hilrick III. We're going over the latest headlines, which includes recreational reading. A new study reveals the number of Americans who read for pleasure has dropped dramatically, some 40% over the last 20 years. So what we're learning is... We've already talked on the show about how professors around the globe, not even in this country, have stopped assigning books in some cases. In many cases, they're just assigning passages because they know it's fruitless because kids are coming into their classroom only having the willpower to read an entire book. But we're also talking about the adult population at large.
And what's interesting to me here is that this is reading for pleasure. You know, some people have to read for work or whatever, and you know that's a drag for them. But for reading for pleasure, it's such a joy for me. So it's so horrible to see this, and I wonder because this particular study notes that there were bigger drops among people with lower incomes and education levels, those in rural areas, even in Black communities. If there are literacy rate issues going on, overlapping with then helping to lower people's interest in leisure reading.
Well, I think you asked the question, is it literacy rates, but also just amount of free time, especially lower, like lower income individuals who are working 2 or 3 jobs. Tell you what really shocked me about this. First of all, I don't think any of us are necessarily surprised that reading for pleasure is down. I mean, I think that's a pretty clear trend, but what this includes, when they say reading for pleasure, they're not just talking about reading books. Mm-hmm. It's books, magazines, newspapers, any print, electronic books, audio books. That is the category of, quote, reading for pleasure. It's all down.
Yeah, I think that's important.
That part shocks me. Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised fewer people are reading books, but I'm just going to read this magazine article for pleasure. That's down.
Well, we'll add a new dimension to this, too, because Denmark is also facing a reading crisis, and research shows a decline in reading and comprehension among teenagers and elementary school students. So to stem the problem there, the government will scrap its 25% sales tax on books, which is among the highest in Europe. That kind of seems a little
insane.
Inane.
25%
insane.
sales tax
I guess it was working for him before this.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it worked until it didn't. And so the government has come up with plans to offset that revenue loss, but I don't know how this is going to work, because in this country, book sales have actually been up after many years of printed book sales have been up after many years of declining. Who knows if that's to stay, but people aren't not buying books or listening to books or reading books and all of these other materials because of cost. We didn't see that anywhere in the survey that was done, which, by the way, was over 236,000 adults were surveyed for this.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised about the audio piece of it, because I thought audio book listening has gone way, 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 way up. So obviously something is happening. This is the worst news that authors could have, particularly when ChatGPT is trying to reign supreme in this moment.
Yeah, it's true. Yes. I mean, the Denmark thing, like to your point, Jared, the closest thing you could sort of look to a control in what their experiment is going to be is that Sweden also, like about 20 plus years ago, they reduced the tax on their books, and they saw book sales go up, but it was the people who were already reading bought more books. It didn't necessarily mean that more people came to reading. So
Well, and of course, you don't have to buy all your books.
That's
and
true.
So
Where could you possibly go to read a book where you didn't have to buy it?
Well, Boston, here at the Boston Public Library, they may have a solution to the U.S. reading crisis. This is Grammy Award singer and musician Leve. The Boston Public Library is partnering with her beginning Sunday, or this is a thing, a very Leve day. It's releasing a special limited edition library card ahead of Library Card Sign-Up Month. So this, in some ways, is a local story. She is a big star.
Huge.
Barbara Streisand, Olivia Rodrigo, huge fans. It's a local story because she went to Berkeley. She's of Chinese and Icelandic origin, played as a teenager in an orchestra, in the symphony orchestra in Iceland, but has partnered with a number of libraries around the country, not a huge number, but ours is among them, to get people to get out and read and take interest in things she also takes interest in.
Well, she has a book club, 350 followers, 50 million
Yeah,
followers.
I was going to say million.
sorry. A million followers.
She has a book club. There are 4 people in it.
And so she's, encouraged reading. Her book list is really interesting. I just looked at it. She has a lot of modern ones. And then she has, The Talented Mr. Ripley, going back to some classics. It's a real mix. But to be able to have that number of people follow you, and to have those other libraries, and including the Boston one, have a special card to highlight reading for pleasure. She's going against the trend.
I think about this. I was thinking about, was it last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about Steve Martin and he did the thing for the Frick, right?
Yes.
And in this time where we're hearing a lot, we're seeing a lot that at best cultural institutions, libraries, museums are struggling, at worst they're under attack. This to me seems like these are like what I would call base hits. Go back to basic, have small wins. And when you have people who have some power, authority, and audience, somebody like a Steve Martin who says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to get people to go to the Frick. You have somebody like this who's saying, you know what I like to do? I like to read. I'm going to partner with some libraries. We're going to see if we can just move the needle a little bit. And I think, to me, this is really encouraging, and it's a light in a dark time that is leading a path forward. I think we all need to think about these small wins, these base hits. And then what we can do just as general people, I think, is participate in this stuff. In some ways, that's the best thing you can do. Just get out there, go do these things. If you like this artist, if this sounds kind of neat, come down here to the library and get yourself one of those cards. They're free, by the way.
Yeah. And reading is vintage, and I'm not trying to be glib about that, because this, I think, also harkens back to how we started out this show, was talking about vintage clothing, and she is somewhat of a vintage figure herself, and you can hear for yourself when she's at the TD Garden on October 27th, because she is somebody who is inspired by jazz and cocktail lounge singing, and she's very singular, and I think this is why she has such a wide range of audience. And so this is music. These are things that get people to slow down and think about life and appreciate life in different ways, and it's fabulous what she's doing. And Leve Day is all about running around in a scavenger hunt, doing all the things she loves to do.
I know. Remember Oprah, the original celebrity book club?
Yeah.
This works.
Yeah.
All right, well, that means it's time for our lightning round. These are the stories that caught our attention this week. Callie, what's yours?
The Getty Foundation is partnering with an archivist and a consultant. They've offered $2.6 million to support a project they call Black Visual Arts Preservation. So at a time where we just talked about the erasure of some of this documentary material, they're very interested in making sure that it exists, and are going to fund 12 projects. 5 have already been funded, including a grant to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in New York, celebrating its 100th anniversary. And the point that they make by doing this is that so much of this information, and the artists and historians and others who've been involved in creating this material that could be lost if not preserved, have influenced our culture in broad ways and long-term ways, and they want to make sure that it stays preserved. So thank God.
That's a fabulous thing. Edgar, what's your story?
So back in 1990, the sculptor Jim Sanborn created this sculpture that was erected on the grounds of the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. It's called Kryptos, right? And Kryptos in ancient Greek, it means hidden. And so the surface of this sculpture has about 1,700 characters carved into it that contain encrypted messages, right? And they're in 4 sections. So over the years, over the last 30 years, 3 of the 4 sections have been decrypted by, folks who understand how to do this thing. Some people working with computers, some just amateur sleuths who are sort of trying to figure out these coded messages. The 4th has gone unsolved. It has continued to go unsolved. And Sanborn is about to turn 80 years old this fall. And he has decided he basically wants to see this thing solved. And he can't wait any longer. So he's going to auction off the answer. So there's a Boston-based organization, RR Auctions, and they're gonna do this. They're expecting somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. Somebody's gonna bid on this and get the answer to how to decrypt this 4th piece of this sculpture, which has gone unsolved for many years. And there are those who expect and say, the thought is, once all 4 are decrypted, they will be the clues to some other puzzle.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty cool thing, and it's kind of awesome that he's auctioning it off. Oh, of course, if you can get it solved before November,
going to say, maybe a lot more people will know about this now and do that.
It's kind of interesting.
Well, mine is a little bit of the equivalent of the people who go to open houses just because you want to see people's houses and what they have in them. So in Spike Lee's new film Highest to Lowest, which stars Denzel Washington as a tycoon who is very wealthy and has a lot of taste. He's a music tycoon, so he's plugged into culture. You'll find in his penthouse a lot of art. Well, this is a reflection either literally of or inspired by Spike Lee's own collection. Of course, you really did have the opportunity for Spike Lee open house a couple of years ago when his art was on view at the Brooklyn Museum in New York.
I saw that.
And I'm sure you were wowed.
It was wow.
I didn't get to see it, but I was wowed by what he has here. It's Basquiat, it's Kehinde Wiley, it's Gordon Parks, Deborah Roberts, Shepard Fairey. So representations of all of these artists are on view in the film as a reflection of this character, but really it's a whole lot of insight into Spike Lee, which I think is pretty fabulous. Always great to see some art too.
That exhibit was fabulous.
That's cool that he put it into the movie that way.
So we'll have a little mini lightning round. The Cambridge Dictionary just added 6,000 new words, and for some of us, it's a little baffling, some of the words that get added. Do you guys have your favorites? I'll start with mine. Skibbity. Skibbity is a word that came out of the internet and apparently has such traction now.
Have you watched any Skibbity Toilet?
I have not.
So a friend of mine's son a couple years ago showed me. I was like, what do you like to watch? He's like, Skibbity Toilet. I was like, what? He's like, here, check it out. Skibbity Toilet is terrifying. It is insane. It is toilets with heads and like human bodies, but with like televisions for faces, and they're in an epic battle in these like crazy. I'm terrified by it.
I don't think I'm going to be working skibbity into my language anytime soon.
Skibbity.
Edgar, Callie, do you have a favorite word?
Well, I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's one I've already used, which is tradwife, because I've done a whole segment on that whole movement about tradwifism, and which is a shrinkage of or a fusion of 2 words, traditional and wife.
A portmanteau.
Yes, there you go. There you go. A woman who is classically very into just the home and the family and the whatever, but extremely so.
Yeah.
And talks about it a lot.
Well, I think a lot of these new words are portmanteaus, right? Which is like, it's basically like we are in
Somebody's read the dictionary.
Yes.
But we are in a time where it is like either you shorten words, right? Like they have, I think, inspo is one of the words, because that's like short for like an inspiration
I like
or whatever.
Delulu.
But I like broligarchy. That's really funny. That is actually
Delulu, because you're delusional. That is very easy to get and whatever. What I don't understand is they say they only pick words that are going to be here forever. Oh,
Callie, I think you're Delulu if you think you can still keep talking. The show's almost over.
As the Australian Prime Minister said, I have a salulu to your delulu, which is to end the show because we're out of time.
Let's get out of here.
That's all for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in Monday for writer Andre Osman as the Call Me By Your Name author discusses his latest collection of novellas. And a reminder that starting Wednesday, September 3rd, The Culture Show will broadcast live here at the library every Wednesday. This is in addition to our regular Fridays. We're on right after BPR. No tickets required to join our studio audience. I'm Jared Bowen. Have an art-filled weekend.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Weber's Second Piano Concerto. Pianist Nikolai Dimidenko, joined by the Scottish Chamber Orchestra and conductor Charles McCarris.
Support for WCRB comes from you and the Foundation for Chinese Performing Arts, presenting a series of summer concerts at NEC by distinguished musicians of varied generations. Violinist Kayla Wakao performs tonight, and on Saturday, the series concludes at Jordan Hall with Mercury Orchestra, playing Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand, featuring the winner of Footsong International Concerto Competition as the soloist. Details at ChinesePerformingArts.net.
Classical Radio Boston is WCRB-FM 99.5 HD1 Lowell, Boston, WGBH-FM HD2 Boston, WCAI-FM HD2 Woods Hole, WJMF-FM Smithfield, Providence, and at classical.org.
Coming up on 3 o'clock, and here's the Academy St. Martin in the Fields and conductor Neville Mariner.